Chapter 1862. Clang. This sword was like splitting the sky and earth apart. Accompanied by sparks, the snowflake's body was cut in half by the blood-colored long sword on the spot. What? The demon ancestor was aghast. Lin Yi on the side was also dumbfounded. The snowflake was a heaven-defying divine artifact, but it was cut in half by a sword? Why is that? Why did the power of the blood-colored long sword suddenly become so terrifying? Seeing this scene, Qin Feiyang and the inner demons were also stunned, because this was also the first time they opened the slaughter zone and witnessed the true horror of the kill tactic. This was not something that could be described with the word apocalyptic. The inner demons came back to his senses, and his eyes surged with blood as he roared, "Today is your doomsday." He took a step forward and charged at the demon ancestor. Even the snowflake's body was cut in half, let alone the demon ancestor's body. At this time, the inner demons was unstoppable. Bloody flames lingered all over his body, making him look like a killing god. The snowflake's artifact spirit looked at the inner demons at this moment, and couldn't help but feel a sense of fear. Once the slaughter zone is opened, I am invincible. The inner demons raised his sword and slashed. Thousands of sword chi turned into a huge wave and rolled toward the demon ancestor. The demon ancestor's face was pale. Slaughter zone. What kind of divine art is this? Seeing that the demon ancestor was about to be engulfed by the sword chi, the snowflake that was cut in half suddenly emerged with the power of law. Immediately after, the snowflake, the demon ancestor, Lin Yi, demon dragon, and demon pagoda disappeared without a trace. And the inner demons raised his eyebrows. After being cut in half, he could still use the power of law? Not good. Go to the Black Tortoise world. Qin Feiyang suddenly shouted. Damn it. The inner demons also roared. The two entered the Black Tortoise world and saw the demon ancestor standing above the devil's land, holding an unconscious woman in his hand. The woman was the mermaid princess. Below, Zhao Tailai's trio, the Blood Kirin, and the Golden Divine Leopard stood together, all anxious. Qin Feiyang shouted, "Let her go! Let her go? Haha!" The demon ancestor laughed as he held onto the mermaid princess tightly. The inner demons didn't dare to act rashly, because killing the mermaid princess was equivalent to killing Qin Feiyang. Isn't it very powerful? Come and kill me if you can. However, your growth has truly exceeded this exalted's expectations. The fiend ancestor snickered. Qin Feiyang said solemnly, as a heaven-defying divine artifact that possesses the power of laws, you actually use such a despicable method. Do you feel ashamed? Trying to provoke me? You're too naive. Your so-called slaughter domain is indeed very frightening. Unfortunately, you all have not grasped the power of the laws. Without the power of law, no matter how heaven-defying the slaughter domain is, it can't do anything to me. Qin Feiyang, I will give you one last chance. Submit to me. Something's wrong. Hand over your physical body to me. The fiend ancestor said. You're interested in my physical body? Qin Feiyang frowned. That's right. As long as I can get your physical body and activate the slaughter domain, who else in this world can be my opponent? The fiend ancestor laughed loudly. You must be dreaming. Qin Feiyang sneered. Stubborn. I have always had a principle. Everything that I can't get must be destroyed. Go to hell for me. The fiend ancestor smiled ferociously. His 5 fingers suddenly exerted force, and the mermaid princess's head exploded like a watermelon. Bastard! The inner demons roared, holding the blood-colored long sword, and attacked frantically. It's useless. With the power of the laws, I can go anywhere. If you have the ability, come to the Forgotten Continent. The fiend ancestor laughed loudly. Snowflake activated the power of the laws again. Immediately, Lin Yi, the fiend ancestor, Snowflake, Demon Pagoda, and Demon Dragon disappeared from the sight of the inner demons. Damn it! Damn it! The inner demons flew into a rage. Zhao Tailai and the others were also furious. But suddenly, a scream of a pupil sounded. And the inner demons was shocked and quickly turned his head to look. He saw Qin Feiyang bleeding all over at this moment. Zhao Tailai and the others' faces also changed drastically. They quickly flew to Qin Feiyang's side and said in shock and anger, "What's going on?" The inner demons landed in front of Qin Feiyang with a murderous aura. With a squelch, they tore apart Qin Feiyang's clothes. Immediately, shocking cracks began to appear on the ground. In the heart, the concentric knot was breaking. Those cracks were caused by the breaking of the concentric knot. With the concentric knot as the center, the cracks spread to Qin Feiyang's entire body. Is this the concentric knot? Inner demons, hurry up and think of a way, or the young master will die. Cui Li looked at the inner demons and cried out anxiously. I have no choice. The inner demons shook his head. What? Cui Li and the others' faces turned pale. The inner demons looked at Qin Feiyang and said in a deep voice, Deity, you can't die. I don't want to either. Qin Feiyang's consciousness did not disappear. However, he couldn't stop the cracks in his body. Quick, give him the healing pill. The blood Kirin suddenly roared. Zhao Tailai quivered and immediately took out a large number of healing pills and stuffed them into Qin Feiyang's mouth. However, it didn't work at all. Zhao Tailai cried out, Young master, hold on, you can't die. I'm sorry, Qin Feiyang muttered. Don't say such useless nonsense. Although I can open the gate of rebirth, I can't sacrifice myself to save everyone. That is to say, if you die here, everyone can't be resurrected. Don't think that I'm joking, you know my character. The inner demon snorted coldly. Qin Feiyang's gaze trembled. He could doubt anyone's words, except for the inner demons. If he said it, then he must be able to do it. I can't die. For mother, for grandpa, for those companions and friends who died for me, I absolutely can't die here. Qin Feiyang roared in his heart, and a strong desire to live emerged in his heart. But it was useless. The cracks on his body had already spread to his entire body. His body was on the verge of falling apart. Even his divine soul was cracking. What should I do? Qin Feiyang was desperate. His consciousness was gradually swallowed up. Finally, he closed his eyes unwillingly, and his consciousness fell into a deep darkness. Swish. But at this moment, beams of lights flashed out from Qin Feiyang's body. The inner demons Zhao Tailai and the rest were bewildered. What appeared from Qin Feiyang's body was the tens of thousands of cedars. Young man, we can feel your desire to live. Suddenly, a faintly discernible voice came from one of the cedars. This is... The inner demon's eyes widened. These cedars had indeed given birth to tree spirits. Your care and concern for your family. Your care and concern for your companions. Your compassion for the common people in the world. All of this makes us admire you very much. There are not many young people like you in the world, and you are worthy of our protection. Now we will merge with you, and we hope that you can lead everyone to create a truly peaceful world. Before his voice died away, tens of thousands of cedars shattered in an instant, turning into sparkling and translucent light spots, and surged into Qin Feiyang's limbs and bones. Bang! A majestic life force suddenly exploded in Qin Feiyang's body. His broken body was immediately repaired at a speed visible to the naked eye. The cedars, Zhao Tailai and the others looked at this scene, and they were all extremely bewildered. They sacrificed themselves so that this esteemed one could be reborn. The inner demons endured the sadness in his heart, and with a plop, knelt in the void and murmured, Thank you. They sacrificed themselves so that the young master could be reborn. Zhao Tailai and the others murmured, and also knelt in the void one after another, bowing deeply. Soon, the cracks on Qin Feiyang's body were healed one by one. The life force of the cedars was also gradually exhausted. After a while, Qin Feiyang finally opened his eyes slowly, looking at the inner demons Zhao Tailai and the others kneeling in the void, and said in confusion, Why am I not dead? Why are you kneeling in the void? Don't you know? The inner demons got up, looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, What do I know? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. The inner demons said, It's the cedars, they saved you. The cedars. Qin Feiyang was taken aback, and hurriedly sank his mind into his body. But searching his entire body, he did not find a single cedar. Don't look for it, because they shattered their original bodies and merged with your body. The inner demons sighed. What? Qin Feiyang's body trembled. The inner demons said, before shattering their original bodies, they said one sentence, asking you to create a truly peaceful world. Qin Feiyang raised his two arms, looked at his hands, and his eyes were filled with tears. He remembered yesterday, when the inner demons were going through their tribulation, he said to the cedars that after this battle was over, he would return them their freedom. But he did not expect at this moment, in order to save him, they all sacrificed themselves. Young master. Zhao Tailai and the others wanted to comfort him, but they did not know where to start. It was rare for the inner demons to not disturb Qin Feiyang, because in his heart, there was also a deep sense of gratitude towards the cedars. Phew! A moment passed. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath, knelt in the void, kowtowed 3 times and 9 times and murmured, I promise you, no matter how much I have to pay, no matter how difficult the road ahead is, I will definitely create a truly peaceful world. After saying that, he stood up, wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes, and turned his head to look at the inner demons. The two nodded at the same time, put away the mermaid princess's body, and appeared in the sky above the sea outside with Zhao Tailai and the others. Lord Demon Ancestor. A murmur entered their ears. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice, and saw Sima Kuan lying in the void, like a helpless child, crying bitterly. The demon ancestor had left, and the eye of despair had lost its effect. Therefore, he had already woken up. Qin Feiyang, inner demons, sensing the aura of Qin Feiyang and the others, his gaze trembled slightly, and he hurriedly raised his head to look at Qin Feiyang and the inner demons, asking, Where is Lord Demon Ancestor? Did you see him? They have already gone to the Forgotten Continent, Qin Feiyang said. Forgotten Continent, Sima Kuan muttered, and then crawled in front of Qin Feiyang and begged, I also want to go to the Forgotten Continent, please help me. You saw it with your own eyes, the demon ancestor's consciousness has already been erased by the snowflakes. Even if you chase after him to the Forgotten Continent, it will be useless. Qin Feiyang said, It can't be. Lord Demon Ancestor must still be alive, I believe. Sima Kuan shook his head and roared. Chapter 1863. Sigh. Qin Feiyang sighed deeply. It could be seen that Sima Kuan and Sima Yuan's feelings for the demon ancestor were indeed very deep. In their eyes, the demon ancestor might really be like a father. However, people must die. Qin Feiyang raised his arm, and a stream of divine power gushed out from his fingertips, entering between Sima Kuan's eyebrows, shattering his soul on the spot. A bloody hole also appeared. Then, Sima Kuan fell down, and was swallowed by the surging seawater. And the Wind Moon Pavilion floated in the air, its divine light dim. This supreme-grade divine artifact is not bad. The inner demons laughed coldly and grabbed the Wind Moon Pavilion. Facing Qin Feiyang and the inner demons, the Wind Moon Pavilion's artifact spirit did not dare to resist at all. The inner demons turned to look at Qin Feiyang and asked, How are we going to go to the Forgotten Continent next? In this battle, everyone had died. The only ones left were Qin Feiyang, the inner demons Zhao Tailai, Tang Hai, Chui Li, the Golden Leopard and the Blood Kirin. It could be said that their losses were heavy. But the culprit, Snowflake, was still at large. If they did not get rid of it, they would not be satisfied. Qin Feiyang said, The people of the Black Tortoise Realm were all killed by you, right? However, I kept a part of their blood. The inner demons said. Snowflake. Qin Feiyang clenched his fists and said fiercely, Return to the capital immediately and think of a way to enter the Forgotten Continent. The inner demons said, We still have to be fast. After all, the slaughter domain can only last for an hour. Qin Feiyang nodded. Swish. But at this moment, a man and a beast suddenly appeared in the void in front of Qin Feiyang and the others. Killing intent surged in the eyes of Qin Feiyang and the others. But when they saw the man and beast clearly, they were stunned. It was actually Uncle Yuan and the snow python. Qin Feiyang asked excitedly, Uncle Yuan, why are you here? He is Qin Yuan. Zhao Tailai, Tang Hai, Chui Li, and the Golden Leopard mumbled. Qin Yuan glanced at everyone. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the inner demons and smiled. I've been paying attention to you guys. Qin Feiyang and the inner demons looked at each other. It was just as they had expected. Qin Yuan said, I know you have a lot of questions in your hearts, but time is of the essence. You must hurry to the forgotten continent. Qin Feiyang said, We're trying to think of a way to get there. What ideas do you have? Qin Yuan asked curiously. The two of them fell silent. I knew that you couldn't do anything about it. Qin Yuan shook his head and smiled. He turned to look at the snow python and said, If you agree to bet, you must accept your loss. Take it out. Qin Feiyang and the other man were stunned. They looked at the snow python suspiciously. Umph. The snow python snorted coldly. Divine light flashed in front of it, and an ancient stone door appeared. This is Qin Feiyang and the other man looked at the stone door. They were stunned for a moment, and then their faces were filled with ecstasy. This stone door was the real space-time gate. Take it. They are all in the glacier forest. Go and end it all. Qin Yuan looked at Qin Feiyang and the other man and smiled. Thank you, Uncle Yuan. The two of them said gratefully. They immediately dripped their blood on it, and activated the space-time gate. The Blood Kirin, the Golden Leopard, and Tang Hai also activated their divine power, and poured it into the space-time gate. Clang. Soon. The space-time gate opened. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Qin Yuan and asked, Uncle Yuan, where can I find you in the future? Qin Yuan smiled and said, When everything is over, I will naturally appear in front of you. Qin Feiyang looked at Qin Yuan deeply. Then he led the inner demons Zhao Tailai and the others into the space-time gate without looking back. Looking at the space-time gate that was gradually disappearing, the snow python said angrily, You old thing, you are really cunning. Why do you say that? Qin Yuan looked at her puzzled. Still pretending. Do you dare say that you did not make a bet with me to give the space-time gate to Qin Feiyang? The snow python said angrily. This is not cunning. This is a strategy. Qin Yuan chuckled. Glacier forest. Above the ice lake. At this moment, there were more than 1,000 people gathered together. The leader was a middle-aged man. He was about 1.8 meters tall. His facial features were sharp and his body was quite thin. He wore a golden robe, and his body was full of a king's domineering aura. That's right. He was Mu Tianyang's younger brother, Mu Tianjun. Behind Mu Tianjun, there were two old men. They exuded a very powerful aura. They were Mu Changfeng and Mu Changyun. The rest of the people were from the Black Tortoise World's Celestial Emperor Empire. Lord Wu Shenhe was the leader. Lord Wu Shenhe was a fake god. The others were all 9-star combat emperors at the peak realm. This force was enough to sweep the forgotten continent. But at this moment, this group of people was nervous, including Mu Tianjun. They all looked at the void opposite them. There were two figures in the void opposite them. It was Demon Ancestor and Lin Yi. Snowflake's body was also on the side. Demon Dragon had also awakened, and his injuries were rapidly recovering. Demon Pagoda was also suspended above Demon Ancestor's head. Mu Tianjun glanced at Lin Yi, Demon Ancestor, Snowflake, Demon Dragon and Demon Pagoda, and said in a deep voice, I really can't believe that such a powerful lineup would be defeated by Qin Feiyang. I'm really not in the mood to talk nonsense with you now. Take me to see your big brother, Mu Tianyang immediately. Demon Ancestor frowned. How do I know if this is your trick? Mu Tianjun snorted coldly. Not to mention Demon Ancestor's subordinates, just Demon Ancestor and Snowflake were not people that Qin Feiyang could defeat. So he suspected Qin Feiyang might have been killed, and Demon Ancestor and others came here to eradicate them. Bastard! Do you know what the situation is now? Can't you see that my body has been split in half? Qin Feiyang's strength is not as simple as you think. Now, only by joining forces with your big brother's Bloodblade can we get rid of him. Demon Ancestor said angrily. And you are not Demon Ancestor? Mu Tianjun was surprised. Yes, Demon Ancestor, that trash's consciousness has been erased by me. Now I am Demon Ancestor. Snowflake's weapon spirit said. You actually erased Demon Ancestor's consciousness. Mu Tianjun was in disbelief and looked at Snowflake's body again. Could all this be true? At the same time, Lin Yi raised her brows. turned to look at Demon Ancestor, and said, "You are not my master?" "Yes. Your master has become a thing of the past. Now I am your master." Demon Ancestor grinned. "Damn you." Lin Yi's eyes surged with murderous intent. "You?" Demon Ancestor's face was full of disdain. His divine aura rolled out, immediately imprisoning Lin Yi in the void. "I don't have time to deal with you now. You'd better be honest, otherwise, I will kill you too." Demon Ancestor laughed, looked at Mu Tianjun and shouted, "Don't test my patience again." Mu Tianjun's pupils contracted. "Second uncle, please think twice. Father still needs some time to condense his divine soul. If this snowflake has ulterior motives, I'm afraid." Mu Changfeng and Mu Changyan transmitted their voices worriedly. Clang. But before the two finished speaking, a deafening noise suddenly sounded in the sky. "What's the situation?" The group of people raised their heads and looked up in bewilderment. The void above them was twisting crazily. A terrifying divine aura rolled in all directions. This aura, Mu Changyan and Mu Changfeng's eyes trembled. "Yes. It's the space-time gate," Mu Tianjun said. "What? The space-time gate? Could it be the snow python?" Everyone was surprised. After a few breaths, a huge stone gate suddenly appeared in the sky. "If it's not the space-time gate, what is it? Could it be the snow python?" Everyone murmured. The next moment, a terrifying murderous aura roared out from the space-time gate. The sky above the glacier forest immediately collapsed crazily. Even the ground trembled, constantly cracking, and ravines appeared everywhere. This murderous aura. "It's Qin Feiyang's inner demons," Demon Ancestor roared. "Inner demons?" Mu Tianjuan's eyes trembled. Why is there such a terrifying murderous aura? Even he couldn't help but feel despair. And the space-time gate. Wasn't it said that the space-time gate was in the hands of the snow python? Why would it fall into the hands of Qin Feiyang's inner demons? Swish. Suddenly, a blood-colored figure stepped out from the space-time gate and appeared in front of the group of people. It was the inner demons. The murderous aura enveloped all directions, and the blood-colored sword in his hand exuded an apocalyptic sharpness. "Damn it! Why is the space-time gate in your hands?" Demon Ancestor roared in disbelief. "Humph!" The inner demon snorted coldly, raised the blood-colored sword and slashed in the air. Pieces of blood-red sword aura, like a tsunami in the ocean, rushed toward the group of people overwhelmingly. "Second uncle, go to the space divine item," Mu Changfeng roared. Mu Tianjun said in a deep voice, "The space divine item can't stop it, run." The group of people suddenly scattered and fled for their lives. "Run." The inner demons sneered. The blood-red sword aura swept across the sky and drowned Mu Changyan and the others in an instant. Immediately, a series of screams resounded through the sky. The group of peak 9-star combat emperors and Marquis Wuxian had no power to resist and were shattered by the sword aura on the spot. Mu Changyan and Mu Changfeng only lasted for 2 breaths before they were torn into pieces by the sword aura. Blood splashed across the sky. Finally, only Mu Tianjun, Snowflake, Demon Ancestor, Demon Dragon, Demon Pagoda, and Lin Yi escaped. Of course, this was with the help of Snowflake, otherwise they would have died. A debt of blood must be repaid with blood. Suddenly, a cold voice sounded. This voice. It's not the inner demons. It's Qin Feiyang. Demon Ancestor looked up and saw that there were 4 people and 2 beasts beside the inner demons. It was Qin Feiyang, Zhao Tailai, and the 2 beasts Blood Kirin. "Why aren't you dead?" Demon Ancestor's body trembled and looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. "Are you disappointed that I'm not dead?" Qin Feiyang said. "Impossible. There is no way to break the concentric knot. Could it be that the mermaid princess is not dead?" Demon Ancestor was surprised. Qin Feiyang said, "Thanks to you she is dead." "Then why aren't you dead?" Demon Ancestor said angrily. Qin Feiyang went silent, and there was a wisp of sorrow in his eyes that couldn't be dispersed as he suddenly shouted, "Inner demon, kill them!" The inner demons used the walk formula and instantly landed beside Lin Yi. He smashed Lin Yi's head with one palm. Immediately, with a wave of his hand, He sent Lin Yi's body to the Black Tortoise world and slashed at Demon Ancestor. Voila! Snowflake, who was cut in half, released a terrifying cold current. This world was instantly frozen. Nothing can stop my determination to kill all of you. Shatter! The inner demons roared to the sky. The blood-colored long sword shone brightly, and the ice that froze the world was instantly annihilated. Following that, the blood-colored long sword turned and slashed at Snowflake's body like lightning. Genius remembered this site's address in a second. Mobile version of reading website, M. Chapter 1864. Clang. Accompanied by a loud noise, dazzling flames burst out of the void. The snowflake that had already been split in half was once again split into 4 halves. Damn it, damn it. In this way, I can no longer activate the power of law. The demon ancestor roared. If you can't activate the power of law, then die. The inner demons smiled sinisterly, like a death god, and charged towards the 4 halves of the snowflake. As long as the snowflake's body was completely shattered, the weapon spirit of the snowflake could be destroyed. How can it be so powerful? Looking at this scene, Mu Tianyang's body trembled, and his face was pale. Before, he didn't believe it, because the snowflake was a heaven-defying artifact with the power of law. No matter how strong Qin Feiyang was, it was impossible to threaten the snowflake. However, he didn't expect it to be true. The weapon spirit controlling the demon ancestor looked at the unstoppable inner demons and felt unprecedented despair. He roared, Mu Tianyang, why don't you come out? Mu Tianjun was also desperate to the extreme. Swish. Before his voice faded, a golden figure suddenly appeared beside Mu Tianjun. This person wore a golden crown and a golden dragon robe. His long hair fluttered in the void, like an emperor descending to the world. The emperor's power was awe-inspiring. Big brother. Seeing this person appear, Mu Tianjuan's face was filled with joy. That's right. This person was Mu Tianyang. At this time, his face was clearly visible. Like the demon ancestor, it was also the face of a young man. The bridge of his nose was high. His golden eyes seemed to be cast from gold leaf. His 2 thick black eyebrows were like 2 sharp arrows, revealing a shocking sharpness. Mu Tianyang looked at Mu Tianjun and said with a smile, Fortunately, there are enough spirit congealing pills to allow me to quickly condense the divine soul. Otherwise, now, we can only be beaten. Mu Tianjun was extremely excited. High in the sky, Qin Feiyang held the space-time gate in his hand and stared at Mu Tianyang, saying, So this is your true appearance. Just like the demon ancestor, shameless. That's right. They're all antiques that have lived for tens of thousands of years, yet they still look so young. Cui Li and Zhao Tailai scoffed. Appearance isn't important. What's important is strength. Mu Tianyang's lips curled into a smile. So you're saying that you have the strength to fight me? The inner demons sneered at Mu Tianyang as they attacked Snowflake's body. The inner demons are the embodiment of evil. Even if you've changed now, you can't escape the control of the evil eye. Evil eye, activate. Mu Tianyang opened his mouth as a blood tide instantly gushed out from his golden eyes. In the meantime, a shocking evil aura spread across the place. The inner demons immediately froze in the void, an incomparably ferocious aura creeping up from between their brows. What happened? Zhao Tailai and the others were bewildered. I have a bad feeling about this. The aura of the inner demons is very similar to when they were first born. Qin Feiyang murmured. When they were first born, Zhao Tailai and the others were startled as they looked at Qin Feiyang. Yes, back then he wanted to kill me and replace me. And now he's exactly the same as he was back then, Qin Feiyang said. How could this be? The inner demons have changed a long time ago. It's impossible for them to return to the past for no reason. Could it be the evil eye? Zhao Tailai and the others looked at Mu Tianyang. Don't look at his eyes. Qin Feiyang's expression changed as he hurriedly shouted. However, it was too late. Zhao Tailai and the others had already met Mu Tianyang's eyes. Their bodies froze in the void for a moment. Immediately after, a monstrous aura surged out. The evil eye is this emperor's battle spirit. As long as one has evil thoughts, They will not be able to escape the control of the evil eye. And the evil eye, together with the demon ancestor's eye of despair and Mu Qing's eye of heaven, are the top 10 battle spirits. Mu Tianyang raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang. Evil eye, Qin Feiyang murmured as he looked at Mu Tianyang's eyes tentatively. In the end, he discovered that it seemed to be useless against him. The evil eye is indeed useless against you. Because all your evil thoughts are on the inner demons, Mu Tianyang said. The demon ancestor shouted. Mu Tianyang, quickly finish them off. Mu Tianyang glanced at the demon ancestor with a complicated expression as he muttered. This emperor has thought of many possibilities, but I never thought that your consciousness would be erased by the snowflakes. However, you deserve to die. Not only you, Qin Batian and Lu Xingyang also deserve to die. Then, Mu Tianyang turned his head, stared at the inner demons and shouted, Go, kill your original body, and you will be the only Qin Feiyang. Mu Tianyang looked at Zhao Tailai and the others and said, And you guys, as long as you kill Qin Feiyang, you will be free. Swoosh. The inner demons, the blood Kirin, the golden leopard, and Zhao Tailai all stared at Qin Feiyang in an instant. That ferocious gaze, that terrifying murderous aura, it was as if they had a blood feud with Qin Feiyang. Mu Tianyang looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Qin Feiyang, what are you going to do now? The demon ancestor reminded him. Don't be careless. He has also opened the eye of heaven. What? Mu Tianyang was stunned as he looked at the demon ancestor and said, Are you talking about the second eye of heaven? That's right. The demon ancestor nodded. This is unbelievable. Mu Tianyang muttered. He looked up at Qin Feiyang and said, I didn't expect you to hide it so well. Qin Feiyang said, I didn't expect you to open this kind of battle soul either. Haha. So what if you open the eye of heaven? The eye of heaven can indeed copy all attacks, including this emperor's evil eye. But even if you copy the evil eye, you won't be able to awaken the inner demons. Unless the eye of nothingness makes all battle souls useless. It's a pity that Lu Jiajin, who opened the eye of nothingness, is not by your side right now, Mu Tianyang said. It's true that duplicating the evil eye now won't be of any use, but, speaking of which, Qin Feiyang looked at Zhao Tailai and the other two and the blood Kirin. He then lowered his head to look at the inner demons, and a smile appeared in his eyes. But what? Mu Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Qin Feiyang said, Didn't you notice that the inner demons haven't moved? Mu Tianyang looked at the inner demons, then at Zhao Tailai and the others. He frowned. Although the inner demons and Zhao Tailai were staring at Qin Feiyang, they did not attack Qin Feiyang. They are struggling. The demon ancestor shouted. How is that possible? It's understandable that Zhao Tailai and the others are struggling. But the inner demons are the embodiment of evil. They are the source of evil. How can they escape the control of the evil eye? Mu Tianyang muttered. He looked up at Qin Feiyang and shouted, Why is that? Why? Qin Feiyang muttered. His eyes suddenly became sharp and said, Okay, I'll tell you why. Because we rely on each other and trust each other. We treat each other as real partners, real friends, and even family. Nothing can cut off the bond between us. Do you understand now? Inner demons, Old Zhao, Old Tang, Chui Li, Blood Kirin, Junior Leopard, wake up! Qin Feiyang roared. His voice was like a bell, echoing in the minds of the inner demons and the others. Boom! Immediately, the inner demons, Zhao Tailai, and the others trembled and suddenly woke up. My evil eye actually failed? No, this must be a dream. Mu Tianyang shook his head. His face was full of disbelief. Then you can continue to dream in hell. The inner demons was furious. He raised his blood-red sword and slashed at Mu Tianyang with murderous intent. Brother, watch out! Mu Tianjun roared. He quickly stepped forward and pushed Mu Tianyang away. Just as Mu Tianjun pushed Mu Tianyang away, the blood-red sword came. The terrifying sword Qi drowned Mu Tianjun. Ah! With a shrill scream, Mu Tianjun's physical body was shattered on the spot. His spirit was also drowned in an instant. Second brother. Mu Tianyang came back to his senses and turned his head to look at this scene. He suddenly gritted his teeth and roared hysterically. So pitiful. He just came back to life and he's going to die again. The inner demons sneered. The blood-red sword swung, and Mu Tianyang's shattered body was immediately obliterated by the sword chi. Not even a strand of hair was left. Second brother. Mu Tianyang was paralyzed in the void. Last time, Mu Tianjun died, but with the divine body he could be resurrected. But this time, not even a trace of his soul was left. He was completely dead, and there was no possibility of resurrection. I'm not as merciful as my ancestor. As long as it's an enemy, I will kill them all. Mu Tianjun is just one of them. It's your turn next. The inner demons raised the blood-red sword and pointed the blade at Mu Tianyang and Snowflake. Their eyes were filled with a dazzling blood-red light. Terrifying. How terrifying. On a nearby mountain peak, a young man in black looked at the inner demons on the battlefield with a face full of shock. This person was Dong Zhengyang. Behind a dense bush behind Dong Zhengyang, a man and a beast were lurking. It was Tan Wu and the infernal divine hound. The man and the beast both restrained their auras to the extreme and stared at Dong Zhengyang like two ghosts. That's right. They had been following Dong Zhengyang since they came out of the divine sight. The infernal divine hound said, "Little scum, what do you think this guy wants to do? I can't see through him at all." Tan Wu shook his head and said, "Why don't we go out and kill him while his attention is on Qin Feiyang?" The infernal divine hound asked. Tan Wu hurriedly said, "Don't be impulsive. We still don't know whether he is an enemy or a friend. I say, how long are you going to follow him?" Suddenly, Dong Zhengyang's voice rang out. Tan Wu and the infernal divine hound were shocked. Had they been discovered? The infernal divine hound's eyes suddenly flashed with a fierce light. Since they had been discovered, they might as well go all the way. Don't move. He may have just felt that someone was following him and didn't realize that it was us. Tan Wu said secretly. However, before his voice fell, Dong Zhengyang suddenly turned his head and looked at them. Two divine lights flashed out of his dark eyes. The bush in front of Tan Wu and the infernal divine hound was immediately shattered. Tan Wu and the infernal divine hound immediately dodged, avoiding the bombardment of the two divine lights. Tan Wu looked at the two divine lights that flashed into the distance and patted his chest with lingering fear. He got up and looked at Dong Zhengyang and said with a smile, "Brother Dong, this is a misunderstanding. Don't fight and hurt our friendship." Misunderstanding? Dong Zhengyang waved his hand and the two divine lights dissipated. Then, he looked at the man and the beast expressionlessly. Please remember the domain name of this book. The mobile version of the literature library reading website. Chapter 1865. Yes, it's a misunderstanding. We didn't follow you. We just sensed the battle fluctuations here, so we came to take a look. Tan Wu laughed. Dong Zhengyang's expression still did not change. Being stared at by Dong Zhengyang like this, Tan Wu and the Hellhound couldn't help but feel a little guilty. A moment later, Dong Zhengyang retracted his gaze and looked back at the battlefield where Qin Feiyang and the others were, and said, "You have been following me since I left the miracle. I want to know, what exactly are you suspecting me of?" This, Tan Wu and the Hellhound looked at each other. They had actually been discovered by this person long ago? Dong Zhengyang said, "You are Qin Yuan's people following me. Are you suspecting that I am harmful to Qin Feiyang?" "What? You even know this?" One man and one beast were surprised. "What I know is far more than you can imagine. I have also seen your fate. Soon, all of you will die here just like Mu Tianjun." Dong Zhengyang whispered. Tan Wu was slightly stunned and frowned. "You mean Qin Feiyang will kill us?" "No, Qin Feiyang will not kill you. Because the person who will kill you is me." Dong Zhengyang waved his hand, and two strands of divine power entered Tan Wu and the Hellhound's forehead like lightning. A bloody hole appeared, and blood splattered in the sky. It's actually the war god." One man and one beast stared at Dong Zhengyang with round eyes, and then fell to the ground and died. It's about to reach the critical moment. I will never let anyone hinder my plan. Dong Zhengyang muttered. After killing Tan Wu and the Hellhound, his expression did not change at all, as if he had done something extremely ordinary. Then, he looked at Qin Feiyang and the others, put his hands in front of his chest, and quickly formed a seal. Buzz. Wisps of blood-colored divine light emerged from his 5 fingers. Not long after, 3 blood-red pentagrams appeared, emitting a strange aura. Following closely, Dong Zhengyang leaned forward and pressed his hands to the ground. The 3 blood-red pentagrams immediately sank into the ground and disappeared. At the same time, the battlefield. The inner demons held blood-red swords in their hands. Their blood-red hair danced in the wind as if they were gods of death, intimidating everyone present. The weapon spirits of the snowflake, the demonic dragon, and the demonic pagoda couldn't help but tremble in the void. This was fear. It was despair. The inner demons were so terrifying and powerful. Who could compete with them? Mu Tianyang stood in the void, his entire being sinking into pain and sorrow. He was a heartless monarch. He could give up on anyone. But only Mu Tianjun. This was because he had doted on his younger brother since he was young. Mu Tianjun, on the other hand, had always been obedient and respectful to him. He originally thought that when his younger brother, Mu Tianjun, was resurrected, the 2 of them would work together to create glory again. However, he didn't expect that everything would end before it even started. Heavenly Monarch, I'm sorry. 10,000 years ago, I didn't protect you well. 10,000 years later, I watched you die in front of me. I'm really useless. I don't deserve to be your big brother at all. Mu Tianyang shook his head, tears dripping down his face. He blamed himself. As a heartless monarch, how could he shed tears? This scene surprised Qin Feiyang and the inner demons. It could also be seen that Mu Tianyang really cared about his younger brother. However, a pitiful person must have something to hate. If Mu Tianyang wasn't eliminated, the world wouldn't be at peace. Go and reunite with Mu Tianjun. The inner demon's murderous aura surged into the sky as he took a step toward Mu Tianyang. Damn it, it's you. Bloodblade, help me kill him. Mu Tianyang roared, his anger soaring to the heavens. Clang. With a flash of blood-red light, the bloodblade appeared. The power of law immediately rushed toward the inner demons. The power of law of the bloodblade was time reversal. Back in the ancient world, Qin Feiyang had already seen it, and it was extremely terrifying. However, although the blood-red sword didn't have the power of law, its power had already surpassed the bloodblade. As long as the bloodblade was destroyed, the power of law would be broken. Time reversal? But do you know? How much did we pay in order to open the slaughter zone? If we lose here, how can we face those dead souls? The inner demons roared into the sky. The blood-red sword cut through the sky and stood on the bloodblade. With a loud clang, the bloodblade was cut in half on the spot. The power of law became much weaker in an instant. This, Mu Tianyang's body and mind trembled. You must die. Not for anything else, but for the countless lives I killed with my own hands. The inner demon swung his sword again. Sword chi flooded the sky, accompanied by sparks. The broken bloodblade immediately shattered into pieces. Why is he so powerful? Mu Tianyang looked at the inner demons and the blood-red sword in a daze. His face was full of fear. Even the bloodblade and snowflake couldn't block the sharpness of the blood-red sword. What level of divine weapon was it? He still didn't know that this blood-red sword was formed by the kill formula. He also didn't know that the slaughter zone had killed all the creatures in the Black Tortoise world. Although the slaughter zone was heaven-defying, the price to pay was too heavy and too bloody. If it weren't for the fact that they had no choice, Qin Feiyang and the inner demons wouldn't have used this ultimate killing move. At this moment, whether it was Mu Tianyang and the Bloodblade, Snowflake, Mo Pagoda, or Mo Long, they all fell into deep despair. But compared to Snowflake, Mo Long and Mo Pagoda, Mu Tianyang's heart was more grieved. No matter what, Mo Long and the others had fought with Qin Feiyang for a night in the Sea of Reincarnation. And him? He had just merged with the divine body and returned to his peak state. He didn't even have time to properly experience the feeling of returning to his peak strength before he fell into a desperate situation. He couldn't accept it. But facing the inner demons at this moment, he really didn't have the courage to fight. Too strong. It was far beyond the range of what he could bear. The inner demons looked at Mu Tianyang, Snowflake, Bloodblade, Mo Long, and Mo Pagoda, and said, Your era has come to an end. In the future, no one will remember that you still exist. Clang. The inner demons waved the sword and rushed toward Mu Tianyang and the others with murderous intent. At this moment Dong Jingyang, who was standing on the mountain peak, whispered, "Seal of Destiny, open." As his voice fell, the ground below Qin Feiyang and the others suddenly trembled violently. What's going on? Everyone was surprised. Before they could react, streaks of blood-red light emerged from the ground like a volcanic eruption. Following closely, on the ground directly below Qin Feiyang, Mu Tianyang, and the demon ancestor, 3 blood-red pentagrams suddenly appeared. The pentagrams shone with blood-red light, like 3 pillars of light, rushed into the sky and shrouded Qin Feiyang and the other 2. What is this? Qin Feiyang and the other 2 were surprised. Why would 3 pentagrams suddenly appear on the ground below? What was even stranger was that these pentagrams didn't have the slightest sense of danger. Even inside the blood-red light, there was an indescribable warmth. In the blink of an eye, before they could react, a pentagram's mark appeared between their eyebrows. After the mark appeared, the blood-red light quickly dissipated. The pentagrams on the ground below also disappeared. Deity, between your eyebrows. The inner demons paused and raised his head to look at the mark between Qin Feiyang's eyebrows in surprise. Between my eyebrows? Qin Feiyang was stunned and quickly waved his hand. The void in front of him shook and became transparent, like a mirror. What's going on? Looking at the mark between his eyebrows, Qin Feiyang's expression suddenly froze. Following that, he looked at Mu Tianyang and the demon ancestor again, and found that the mark between their eyebrows was exactly the same as the mark between his eyebrows. This is the seal of destiny. Suddenly, a calm voice sounded. This voice. Qin Feiyang quickly raised his head and saw the distant void. A young man in black was walking towards them step by step. Dong Jingyang. The inner demons also frowned. They were originally wondering where this person was. They didn't expect him to be hiding nearby. Seal of destiny. At the same time, above a mountain. Qin Yuan raised his head and looked at Dong Jingyang and the void image in front of him with a thoughtful look. On the other hand, the snow python at the side looked a little excited. Suddenly, Qin Yuan seemed to have thought of something and his gaze trembled slightly. He turned to look at the snow python and asked in surprise, "Why does Dong Jingyang have the seal of destiny? Don't you already have the answer in your heart?" The snow python sneered. "Impossible. Back then, we all saw him die in front of us with our own eyes. This Dong Jingyang. Could it be his successor?" Qin Yuan said. "Passed in? Dong Jingyang is him. He didn't die at all." The snow python said. Qin Yuan said in shock. "You mean he took over Dong Jingyang's body?" "That's right. Back then, he saw his destiny and knew that he couldn't escape, so he split a wisp of his soul in advance and went to the spiritual state to enter the body of a young man. This young man is Dong Jingyang," the snow python said. "I see." Qin Yuan suddenly understood and said, "Then why didn't he go anywhere else but to the spiritual state?" The snow python said, "Because he saw the future in the spiritual state." "What future?" Qin Yuan frowned. About this, the snow python pondered for a moment and said, "I think it's better to wait for him to tell you personally." Qin Yuan raised his eyebrows and looked up at Dong Jingyang, his face full of suspicion. The seal of destiny? Above the glacier forest, Dong Jingyang was standing in the void opposite Qin Feiyang and the others. Even in the face of the inner demons, he was not moved at all. And Mu Tianyang was no stranger to Dong Jingyang. As for Snowflake, although the demon ancestor's consciousness had been erased by it, it had obtained all of the demon ancestor's memories, so it knew a little about Dong Jingyang. Dong Jingyang glanced at Mu Tianyang and the others, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, "Brother Qin, before leaving the miracle, I specially reminded you to be careful of me. Why didn't you remember? You let me get away with it so easily." Qin Feiyang's pupils contracted. The aura that Dong Jingyang exuded at this moment was not that of a false god, but of a war god. The inner demons waved its long sword and looked at Dong Jingyang with murderous intent, asking, "What is the seal of destiny you mentioned just now?" Chapter 1866. The seal of destiny is a kind of innate ability to control the fate of others. In other words, Qin Feiyang Mu Tianyang and the devil ancestors' fate are all in my hands. If I want them to die, they will die, Dong Zhenyang said. What? The inner demon's eyes trembled. Qin Feiyang Mu Tianyang and the devil ancestors' faces also changed greatly. Dong Zhenyang looked at Snowflake and said, "Release the devil ancestors' consciousness." What do you mean? Could it be that the devil ancestors' consciousness was not erased by Snowflake? Qin Feiyang and the others immediately looked at the devil ancestor and Snowflake in surprise. What are you talking about? The devil ancestor's consciousness has long been erased by this sovereign. The artifact spirit said. No, you didn't erase it, because I can see the fate of you and the devil ancestor. To be exact, I can see your future, Dong Zhenyang said. See the future? The artifact spirit was surprised. Qin Feiyang and the others were also in disbelief. See the future of the devil ancestor and Snowflake? How could such a thing be done? You seized the devil ancestor's body, so the seal of destiny is equivalent to controlling you. I think you don't want to be erased by me like this, Dong Zhenyang said with a calm expression. Trying to scare this sovereign? The artifact spirit laughed. Why don't you listen? Dong Zhenyang sighed, and with a wave of his hand, the seal of destiny between the devil ancestor's eyebrows suddenly cracked open. At that moment, Snowflake's artifact spirit felt a fatal threat. Moreover, Snowflake's body was also dissipating. How is this possible? The artifact spirit roared in disbelief. Qin Feiyang and the others were also extremely shocked when they saw this scene, because this was the best proof that Dong Zhenyang did not lie to them. Dong Zhenyang looked at Snowflake and said, I'll give you one last chance, release the devil ancestor's consciousness. You, the artifact spirit, was furious. It seems like you don't want to cherish this opportunity. Dong Zhenyang sighed deeply and waved his hand again. The mark between the demon ancestor's eyebrows split into two. Don't. The artifact spirit screamed, and immediately returned to his body. At least you know your place. Dong Zhenyang glanced at the snowflakes and waved his arm again. The cracked seal of destiny between the demon ancestor's eyebrows immediately healed. The main body of the snowflake immediately stopped dissipating. At the same time, the demon ancestor's consciousness appeared. However, he did not speak for a long time. He lowered his head, and his expression was incomparably complicated. After a long time, the fiend ancestor raised his head and scanned the entire place. In the end, he looked at Snow and sighed. Why didn't you erase my consciousness? Actually, I won't blame you for erasing my consciousness. Instead, I will be grateful to you. Because I've made too many mistakes in my life. Only death can atone for your sins. After saying that, the demonic ancestor lowered his head again. His face was filled with pain. Idiot! Snowflake snorted coldly, as if she had expected better from him. Yes, I am an idiot. If I could have woken up earlier, how could I have done so many heinous things? The demon ancestor muttered. He raised his head and looked at Dong Zhenyang. Why did you save me? Dong Zhenyang said. Because you can't die yet. Reason. The demon ancestor said. I need your strength. After Dong Zhenyang finished speaking, he looked at Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang. I also need your strength. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang frowned. You will understand in the future. In short, none of you can die now. In other words, although I used the seal of destiny to control you, I will not take your lives. Dong Zhenyang said. What kind of joke is this? How can our fate be controlled by you? The inner demons roared and slashed at Dong Zhenyang. The seal of destiny can not only control the fate of others, but also tie their lives to mine. In other words, if you kill me, not only the demon ancestor and Mu Tianyang, but your original body will also die with me. Dong Zhenyang looked at the inner demons fearlessly. What? The inner demons trembled. Young master, what should we do now? Zhao Tailai and the others looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze. Qin Feiyang stared at Dong Zhenyang in silence. The inner demons suddenly laughed and said, Since I can't kill you, then I will kill the demon ancestor and Mu Tianyang. You can't kill them either. Our fates are already connected. No matter who you kill, your original body will die, Dong Zhengyang said. Why did it become like this? The inner demons trembled and gripped the blood-colored sword tightly. If he didn't kill the demon ancestor and Mu Tianyang, then wouldn't Fatso, Gongsun Bei, Yanwei, Shui Song his mother, and the creatures of the Black Tortoise world have sacrificed in vain? No. This kind of thing was absolutely not allowed. What seal of destiny? I don't care. Since you dare to stand in front of me, then I dare to kill you. The inner demons roared and charged at Dong Zhengyang crazily. What a crazy inner demons! Dong Zhengyang muttered. But he didn't dodge, nor did he counterattack. The inner demons attacked. Without any hesitation, he slashed at Dong Zhengyang. Dong Zhengyang's body was cut in half by the blood-colored sword on the spot. However, the inner demons froze in the void. Dong Zhengyang's split body didn't have any flesh or blood. It's an energy body, Zhao Tailai shouted. Bastard! It's actually just a clone. The inner demons were furious as they scanned the surrounding void. Dong Zhengyang's original body must be hiding somewhere nearby. Sigh. The demon ancestor let out a long sigh, took a step forward, and landed in front of the inner demons. He smiled and said, "Kill me." He said that our fates are already connected. As long as you kill me, no matter where he hides, he will die. Do you think I don't dare? The inner demons said angrily. Without any hesitation, he raised his hand and slashed with his sword. Mu Tianyang looked at Qin Feiyang and said anxiously, "Hurry up and stop the inner demons." He had just recovered his strength and didn't want to die. And now, the only person who could stop the inner demons was Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang glanced at the inner demons, then looked at Mu Tianyang and said, "A dignified emperor is also so afraid of death." "You're not afraid?" Mu Tianyang said angrily. Qin Feiyang was silent. Frankly speaking, he was very afraid, because once he died, no one would be able to revive everyone. The inner demons suddenly said, "This sovereign, I will revive them." Qin Feiyang immediately looked at the inner demons. The inner demons turned his head and smiled at Qin Feiyang, saying, "After all, everyone is my companions, my family, how can I abandon them? Similarly, I won't abandon you." "Thank you," Qin Feiyang murmured and said with a smile. "If that's the case, then I have no worries at all. Just do it." The inner demons nodded, turned to look at the demon ancestor, and shouted, "Die!" I miscalculated. I should have controlled the inner demons as well. On a distant mountain peak, Dong Zhengyang looked at the inner demons and muttered to himself. There was a trace of anger between his brows. That's right. Previously, he was indeed just a clone. He also thought that as long as he controlled Qin Feiyang, it was equivalent to controlling the inner demons. But he didn't expect the inner demons to be so crazy and not care about Qin Feiyang's life at all. A good game of chess was completely disrupted just like that. Sigh. Perhaps the time isn't right yet. Dong Zhengyang sighed. With a thought, the marks between Qin Feiyang, the demon ancestor, and Mu Tianyang's eyebrows immediately disappeared. Young master, quickly look at Mu Tianyang and the demon ancestor's eyebrows. Zhao Tailai's eyes suddenly widened. Qin Feiyang looked over, and his expression immediately froze. The seal of destiny had actually disappeared? Zhao Tailai turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said in surprise, "Young master, the seal of destiny on your forehead has also disappeared." Qin Feiyang touched his forehead and said, "It seems that this seal of destiny can indeed tie our lives together. Otherwise, Dong Zhengyang wouldn't have removed the seal of destiny now." Speaking of which, he raised his head and scanned the surrounding void and said, "Go find Dong Zhengyang for me." Understood. The blood qilin, the golden leopard, and Zhao Tailai immediately spread out and released their divine senses to search carefully. At the same time, the inner demons and Mu Tianyang also noticed the disappearance of the seal of destiny. The two of them were naturally overjoyed. Because this way, they wouldn't have to die with the demon ancestor. Of course, the inner demons wouldn't let the demon ancestor go either. The blood-colored longsword fell, and its sharp edge tore the sky and split the earth. The demon ancestor's divine body was torn apart on the spot. Blood splattered everywhere, and his divine soul was also shattered by the blood-colored longsword. Emodu was also shattered along with it, because before Emodu, Snowflake's weapon spirit had taken it into the demon ancestor's body. And in the face of such a terrifying sword, there was no suspense. The people in Emodu were all killed, and not a single strand of hair was left. Lord Demon Ancestor. Seeing the death of the demon ancestor, the demon dragon immediately let out a hysterical roar and rushed towards the inner demons without caring about anything else. At the same time, Mu Tianyang also turned pale with fright and disappeared in an instant. Obviously, he had hidden in the space divine object. And the inner demon smiled contemptuously and waved the blood-colored longsword in his hand. The demon dragon's blood immediately splattered across the sky. Immediately after, he turned around and looked at the place where Mu Tianyang had disappeared. His divine senses rolled out and immediately captured that Mu Tianyang was riding the space divine object and frantically fleeing. Even if you can ascend to the heavens or dive into the earth, you won't be able to escape death today. The inner demon slashed out with his sword. A blood-colored light flashed across the sky like lightning and stood on the space divine object. Clang! The space divine object was shattered on the spot. 3 bloody figures appeared in a sorry state. It was Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, and Shen Mei. As for the others in the space divine object, they had all been destroyed along with the space divine object. Not even their bones were left. As for Mu Qing and Shen Mei, they were saved under Mu Tianyang's best protection. At this moment, the two of them looked at the inner demons, and their eyes were filled with fear and despair. Now who else can stop me from killing you? The inner demons glanced at the 3 of them. Like a ruthless death god, he charged towards the 3 of them step by step. Mu Qing stood in front of Mu Tianyang and roared, "My lord, you go quickly. I'll hold him back. Go quickly." Shen Mei also stood in front of Mu Tianyang and shouted, "Just you two." The inner demon's face was full of disdain. With a flick of his fingers, 2 strands of divine power shot out and entered Mu Qing and Shen Mei's glabella. Ah! Following the 2 screams, their heads exploded like watermelons. "Mu Qing, Mayor, bastard, I'll perish together with you." Mu Tianyang roared, and a destructive aura rushed out of his body. "If you want to self-destruct, you have to get my permission." The inner demon's domineering aura was unparalleled. He waved his blood-colored sword again, and the blood-colored light flashed again. In an instant, he rushed in front of Mu Tianyang and entered his glabella. Boom! Mu Tianyang's head exploded, and his divine soul was annihilated. Chapter 1867. At the same time, seeing Demon Ancestor, Demon Dragon, and Mu Tianyang being killed one after another, Snowflake, Bloodblade, and Demon Pagoda all fell into an unparalleled panic. Let's not talk about Demon Pagoda first. Although Snowflake and Bloodblade were both heaven-defying artifacts, their bodies were now broken, and could no longer activate the power of law. In other words, they were now fish on the chopping board. Shwa! Inner demons turned around and swept towards them. Snowflake's artifact spirit hurriedly said, "Inner demons, let's talk nicely, don't do it. What were you doing earlier?" Inner demons smiled coldly and rushed in front of Snowflake. That terrifying murderous aura caused Snowflake to be extremely frightened. Don't. Look, Bloodblade and I are both heaven-defying artifacts. If we help you, even if you go to the ancient realm in the future, no one can hurt you." Snowflake said, "If I let you go, how can I face those sacrifice cedar? You'd better be destroyed." Killing intent surged in inner demons' eyes. Sword chi surged like a tide, drowning Snowflake, Demon Pagoda, and Bloodblade. Snowflake and Bloodblade were both heaven-defying artifacts. It was not an easy task to completely destroy them. However, it was only a matter of time. As for Demon Pagoda, it was much inferior. Although it was a legendary artifact, the blood-colored sword's current power far exceeded that of a legendary artifact. In the blink of an eye, Demon Pagoda had already been torn apart and turned into pieces. Inner demons, Qin Feiyang, you will die a horrible death. Even if we become ghosts, we will come to find you. Just you wait. But suddenly, 3 enraged and resentful roars could be heard. And Qin Feiyang was stunned. Inner demons also looked at Demon Pagoda in shock. Of these 3 voices, 2 of them belonged to the Chief Pagoda Master and the State Preceptor. The other voice was somewhat unfamiliar. Following closely, 3 figures fell out from the broken Demon Pagoda. So they are all in Demon Pagoda. Looking at the 3 of them, inner demons nodded in realization. That's right. The 3 of them were the Chief Tower Master, the Imperial Advisor, and Zhuge Shunfeng. As soon as the 3 of them appeared, they stared at the inner demons with resentful eyes. In just a moment, the 3 of them were torn to pieces by the sword energy and died on the spot. Ants will always be ants. The inner demons smiled coldly. Boom. However, at this moment, accompanied by a terrifying aura, the snow python appeared out of thin air without any warning. Its body was hundreds of meters long, and it raised its huge tail and slammed it towards the inner demons. What? The inner demon's expression changed. Isn't this bastard in the sea of reincarnation? Why is he here? It was a close call. With a thought, the blood-red armor appeared. Boom. The giant tail fell, and the inner demons were sent flying. Snow Python, are you done yet? Qin Feiyang bellowed. So what if it's not over? The snow python gave a contemptuous smile as its divine power surged out and pounced towards Qin Feiyang. Snow python, you have broken the rules. At the same time, Qin Yuan also appeared out of thin air and stood in front of Qin Feiyang. He waved his old hand and a gust of divine power surged out. Boom. The 2 divine powers collided with each other. One must know, the snow python was an existence that surpassed the war god level. Since Qin Yuan dared to make a move, it meant that his cultivation was not weaker than the snow python's. The collision of the 2 guardians' divine powers was extremely terrifying. A destructive wave of air swept across the sky. The void was destroyed, and the earth collapsed. Dust billowed and covered the sky. Snow python, I won't forgive you. After the inner demons stabilized his body, he grabbed the blood-red sword and rushed into the dust, charging towards the snow python. The blood-red armor on his body was already shattered, and blood was dripping from his body. When the killing zone is over, I will let you know the consequences of angering me. The snow python glanced at the inner demons coldly, then swept up the demon tower, snow, and the fragments of the blood-red sword, and disappeared from the sight of the inner demons. Damn it! The inner demons roared and crazily waved the blood-red sword. The blood-red sword energy shattered the void and the earth. The corpses of the demon ancestor, Mo Long, and Mu Tianyang were all turned into ashes under the sword energy. High up in the sky, Qin Feiyang looked at Qin Yuan and exclaimed, Uncle Yuan, why are you here? Qin Yuan glanced at the crazy inner demons, then looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled. As guardians, the snow python and I can freely travel between the 2 continents. But just now, I was careless and didn't keep an eye on the snow python, allowing her to escape. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. Dong Zhengyang, so you were hiding here. At this moment, Zhao Tailai's shout sounded. Qin Feiyang hurriedly looked over and saw Zhao Tailai's aura erupting as he rushed towards a mountain peak. On the peak of the mountain, a young man in black stood against the wind. Who else could it be other than Dong Zhengyang? Dong Zhengyang die. When the inner demons heard Zhao Tailai's voice, they immediately rushed over with the blood-red sword. Tang Hai, the Blood Kirin, Chui Li, and the Golden Panther also immediately rushed over. On the peak of the mountain, Dong Zhengyang looked at the inner demons and Zhao Tailai without a trace of nervousness. Qin Feiyang, we will meet again. Finally, he looked at Qin Feiyang and said expressionlessly. Then he withdrew his gaze. Don't even think about escaping, Zhao Tailai shouted. Get lost. But suddenly, a cold shout sounded. The snow python appeared next to Dong Zhengyang out of thin air. Divine power gushed out as it pounced toward Zhao Tailai. Zhao Tailai's expression changed as he quickly turned around and fled. If you have guts, don't run. The inner demons roared angrily. The snow python snorted and immediately disappeared without a trace with Dong Zhengyang. Beast, beast. The inner demons was extremely angry as they scanned the void around them. Qin Yuan waved his hand and brought Qin Feiyang to the side of the inner demons. He smiled and said, "Don't look for her. She must have taken Dong Jingyang and left the first area." "She left the first area so quickly?" the inner demons said. Qin Yuan smiled and said, "After all, she is the guardian of the forgotten continent. No matter where she goes, she can just move her mind." "Damn it." The inner demons punched the void, and a large part of the void was instantly shattered. The demon ancestor and Mu Tianyang are dead. Their subordinates were also annihilated along with the spatial divine item. So there is no need to chase after the snow python now. Moreover, killing the snow python will not benefit you at all. Instead, it will bring you a greater disaster. Qin Yuan said. "What disaster?" Qin Feiyang and the inner demons looked at each other and looked at Qin Yuan in shock. "The reason why the snow python and I can become the guardians of the two continents is because of a terrifying existence. If you kill her, you will anger that existence." Qin Yuan said. Qin Feiyang said, "Who is this terrifying existence you are talking about?" Qin Yuan said, "I have never seen its face. I only know that it is a golden small beast." "A golden small beast?" Qin Feiyang and the inner demons looked at each other. Could it be that the golden small beast that Uncle Yuan was talking about was the same golden small beast that they had met in the miracle? "Greetings, Elder Qin." At this time, Zhao Tailai, Tang Hai, Chui Li the Blood Kirin, and the golden leopard flew over and bowed to Qin Yuan. "No need to be so polite. This time, Feiyang was able to defeat the demon ancestor and Mu Tianyang because of your help." "Thank you." Qin Yuan bowed. "You can't do that." Zhao Tailai hurriedly waved his hand. Tang Hai, Chui Li, the golden leopard, and the blood Kirin also looked terrified. This old man in front of them was the person that the young master respected the most. They couldn't accept this bow. Qin Yuan smiled and turned to look at Qin Feiyang and the inner demons. He said, "You are very lucky to have such a group of reliable companions." The inner demons said proudly, "Isn't it because I taught them well?" Zhao Tailai and the others heard this and immediately rolled their eyes. "What? You have a problem?" The inner demons looked at them with a frown. "I wouldn't dare." The 3 people and 2 beasts shook their heads. What a joke. Even the snow python fled at the sight of them. One could imagine how terrifying the inner demons were now. With their strength, they were probably not enough to fill the gaps between the inner demons' teeth. At the same time, they were also very happy. Fortunately, they were not the enemies of Qin Feiyang and the inner demons. Otherwise, they would definitely end up like the demon ancestor and Mu Tianyang, because except for Chui Li, they were all once Qin Feiyang's opponents. Suddenly, Zhao Tailai looked at Qin Feiyang curiously and asked, "Young master, can you open the slaughter field?" This question of yours, if you don't have an average level of skill, you really can't ask it. Tang Hai suddenly looked at him with disdain. The inner demons also pressed his forehead and helplessly shouted to the sky, "How can I have such a stupid subordinate?" Zhao Tailai was stunned and looked quite embarrassed. If the inner demons could open the slaughter field, then Qin Feiyang could certainly do it too. He could even ask such a stupid question. No wonder Tang Hai and the inner demons despised him. "Then I'll ask a good question." Chui Li grinned and looked at Qin Feiyang saying, "Young master, can you and the inner demons open the slaughter field at the same time? Are there any other restrictions?" "We can open it at the same time. As for the restrictions, in addition to the 1 hour that you know, we can only open it once a day." Qin Feiyang said, "Amazing. If you open the slaughter field at the same time, then you will really be invincible." Chui Li was speechless. Zhao Tailai said, "The slaughter field is indeed powerful, but I think the young master will not open it easily." "That's true." Chui Li nodded. The sacrifice of the entire Black Tortoise realm in exchange for the current battle strength of the inner demons was too heavy a price. Back to the topic. Qin Feiyang's face became serious. With a wave of his hand, the phantom of the golden small beast condensed. He looked at Qin Yuan and asked, "Uncle Yuan, is this the terrifying existence you mentioned?" "Yes." Qin Yuan nodded. "What?" Qin Feiyang's face changed. The eyes of the inner demons, Zhao Tailai, and the others sank. It seems that you have seen it. Qin Yuan smiled. Qin Feiyang said, did it really make you a guardian? Yes. And it also raised my cultivation from the false god realm to the half-step divine lord realm. Qin Yuan said. This? Qin Feiyang and the others were shocked. From the false god realm to the half-step divine lord realm. How heaven-defying would it take to do that? Zhao Tailai sighed. Young master, it seems that we have underestimated its strength. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Chapter 1868. And most importantly, it was the small beast that made Uncle Yuan a guardian. That means that the Great Qin and the Forgotten Continent are all under its control, just like the miracle. In other words, the two continents we live on were also created by that person called Wuxian. The inner demons said in a deep voice. The miracle, the Great Qin, the Forgotten Continent, the six-word divine formula, the ancient castle, Chang Shui, all of these are related to him. What kind of existence is this Wuxian? Everyone frowned, unable to figure out what was going on. Qin Yuan smiled and said, a person of that level is not someone we can speculate about. Qin Feiyang nodded, looked up at Qin Yuan and said, Uncle Yuan, can you help me solve the doubts in my heart now? Qin Yuan said, the battle is not over yet. It's not over yet? Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned, looking at Qin Yuan suspiciously. The Merfolk clan. Qin Yuan reminded. Damn it. I actually forgot about them. The inner demon's eyes were filled with killing intent as they looked at the ice lake. The ice lake and the altar were nowhere to be found. Obviously, they had been destroyed in the previous battle. The inner demons retracted their gaze and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, Main body, quickly open the gate of time and space. Let's go and kill them all. Qin Feiyang said helplessly. The Real Gate of Time and Space can only be opened once a day. Then what should we do? The inner demons were annoyed. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something, looked up at Qin Yuan, and said with a smile, Uncle Yuan, bring us back to the Great Qin. This shouldn't be against the rules, right? You brat. Actually, you don't have to worry too much. Tantai Li has already brought people to support Elder Qin. Qin Yuan shook his head and smiled. Great-grandmother? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. After Mu Tianjun merged with the divine body, he immediately brought people to the main tower. Tantai Li is also a smart woman. Seeing that the situation was not good, she did not hesitate to bring Yi Shu and the others to escape to the spiritual state. Qin Yuan said. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. He smiled and said, with great-grandmother and the others providing support, the people of the 9 prefectures should. No. The living beings of the 9 continents have been slaughtered by the mermaid clan. Qin Yuan sighed. Slaughter them all. Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. The inner demons roared. These damned beasts, we must kill them. Qin Yuan was silent for a while. Looking at the inner demons and Qin Feiyang, he said, after all, the mermaid race has a deep relationship with the late emperor. I hope you can still be merciful. If I don't kill these heartless bastards, I won't be able to vent my anger. The inner demons snorted. Qin Yuan glanced at the inner demons, and then at Qin Feiyang. Both of them had a strong killing intent between their brows. He shook his head and sighed helplessly. He smiled and said, Do as you wish. After saying that, the old man waved his hand, and the group of people suddenly disappeared without a trace. However, Qin Yuan did not return to the Great Qin Empire and stayed in the Forgotten Continent. Dong Xingyang, Snow Python, this old man wants to see what exactly you are planning. Qin Yuan muttered and took a step forward, disappearing between heaven and earth. Spirit State. Above the Butterfly Valley. At this moment, the flames of war were swirling. Whether it was Elder Qin's group of 5 or the 5 mermaid ancestors, they were all covered in blood. I didn't expect you to be so strong and even have a supreme-grade divine artifact. The mysterious lady shouted angrily. In the golden mermaid's hand, there was a fist-sized golden bead. It was completely round and looked like it was cast in gold, shining with golden light. This was the supreme-grade divine artifact that Elder Qin mentioned. You guys are impatient. The Golden Mermaid looked at the mysterious lady and snorted coldly. 10 ancient pagodas floated around the mysterious lady. Each ancient pagoda was as huge as a mountain and linked together, emitting a terrifying aura. This aura was no weaker than the golden bead in the Golden Mermaid's hand. They could fight for so long precisely because of these two divine artifacts. Both sides fought extremely fiercely. Swoosh! Suddenly, high in the sky, 5 people and 2 beasts appeared out of thin air. They were Qin Feiyang, the inner demons, Zhao Tailai, Tang Hai, Cui Li the Blood Qilin, and the Golden Divine Leopard. Bloody waves rolled in the killing zone. The blood-colored longsword's murderous aura soared into the sky. As soon as they appeared, Elder Qin's group of 5 and the 5 mermaid ancestors felt the murderous aura of the blood-colored longsword. In an instant, the 10 of them stopped what they were doing and looked up. Qin Feiyang. Without a doubt, Elder Qin's group of 5 was overjoyed. The 5 mermaid ancestors, on the other hand, looked like they had seen a ghost. Their bodies and minds were trembling, and their faces were filled with disbelief. Qin Feiyang's appearance in the spirit state meant that the battle with the demon ancestor was over? Moreover, the demon ancestor was defeated? For a moment, the 5 mermaid ancestors fell into panic. The demon ancestor had more than a dozen gods of war under his command, including 2 low-tier gods of war. The demon ancestor himself was even more powerful. He actually lost to Qin Feiyang? How terrifying was Qin Feiyang's current strength? Feiyang, the mysterious lady, Elder Qin Yishu, the monkey-faced old man, and the hook-nosed old man immediately soared into the sky after coming back to their senses. Elder Qin, great-grandmother, Elder Yi. And you too. Qin Feiyang glanced at Elder Qin, the mysterious lady Yishu, the monkey-faced old man, and the hook-nosed old man one by one. He bowed and said, "Thank you for your hard work." "What hard work? You are the ones who have really worked hard." The mysterious lady shook her head and asked, "How is the demon ancestor now?" The demon ancestor, Mu Tianjun and Mu Tianyang, including their subordinates, have all been wiped out by us. The snowflake and bloodblade, these 2 heaven-defying artifacts, have also been shattered. Although it's a pity that we didn't completely destroy them, they won't cause any trouble in the short term. Zhao Tailai said. Elder Qin's group of 5 looked at each other. Not only did they defeat the demon ancestor, but they also eliminated Mu Tianyang and Mu Tianjun? This speed was too fast, wasn't it? Yishu asked. In other words, you came from the Forgotten Continent. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Amazing, amazing. Kid, you really didn't disappoint our high hopes. Elder Qin stepped forward and patted Qin Feiyang on the shoulder, laughing with relief. However, hearing the conversation between Qin Feiyang and the others, the 5 mermaid ancestors were scared out of their wits. The demon ancestor, Mu Tianyang, and Mu Tianjun were not only defeated, but even the 2 heaven-defying artifacts were also severely damaged. How did the strength of this group of people become so terrifying? Wait. Suddenly, the 5 looked at the blood-colored long sword in the hands of the inner demons, and their hearts suddenly surged. That edge, that aura. Could it be because of it? Big brother, quick, run immediately. A black-winged mermaid secretly said. The Golden Mermaid quivered and immediately led the 4 into the spatial divine item. Want to escape? The inner demon's face was full of disdain. Divine consciousness emerged, enveloping all directions, and instantly captured the spatial divine item. Following closely, he waved the blood-colored long sword, and a flash of light burst out. Accompanied by a clang, a black hall immediately shattered in the void. That was the spatial divine item that the Qin Emperor gave to the mermaid clan back then. The spatial divine item was instantly destroyed. The 5 of them rolled out in a sorry state, their faces full of shock. The dozens of pseudo-god-level mermaids also appeared one after another. In addition to them, there were thousands of other mermaids. The cultivation of these mermaids were all between War Master and War Emperor. Without exception, they all raised their heads and looked at the inner demons in horror, panicking to the extreme. You should thank me. Because if I didn't show mercy, you would have been annihilated along with the spatial divine item. The inner demons laughed sinisterly. So you're going to let us go? The Golden Mermaid's pupils contracted, and he asked nervously. "Let you go," the inner demons murmured, and a fierce light flashed in his eyes. He shouted, "Back then, our ancestors could have exterminated your clan, but in the end, not only did they not kill you, but they also gave you a spatial divine item with a time array. But now how are you repaying them?" "What? A spatial divine item with a time array?" When the four of them heard this, they looked at Qin Feiyang and the inner demons in surprise. "That's right. This is what the demon ancestor said himself. And that spatial divine item, I think it's the hall that was destroyed before," Qin Feiyang said. "This is simply outrageous. The Qin Emperor was so good to you, and you actually rebelled." The mysterious lady was furious. If Qin Feiyang and the inner demons were not here, facing the mysterious lady's anger, the 5 mermaid ancestors would definitely continue to be arrogant. But now, they really did not have the courage. They lowered their heads and trembled in fear. "I didn't kill you just now, not because I want to let you go, but because I want to personally send you, one by one, to hell." The inner demons smiled ferociously, holding the blood-colored long sword, like a ruthless grim reaper, and rushed toward the group of mermaids. "Wait!" the mysterious lady suddenly shouted. The inner demons stopped and turned to look at the mysterious lady in confusion. Qin Feiyang, Zhao Tailai, and the others were also suspicious. The mysterious lady clenched her hands and said angrily, "These ungrateful bastards, let me take care of them." "You?" The inner demons was stunned and grinned. "Great-grandmother, are you kidding? With your strength, to take care of them, I'm afraid." "What? Are you looking down on me?" Before the inner demons finished, the mysterious lady raised her eyebrows. "No, no." The inner demons hurriedly waved his hand, rushed to Qin Feiyang's side, and looked at the mysterious lady playfully. He really wanted to see what this great-grandmother could do. Seeing this situation, the 5 merfolk ancestors looked at each other, and a light flashed in their eyes at the same time. The golden merman looked at the mysterious lady and said, "If we defeat you, will you let us go? As long as you have the ability, what's the harm in giving the great Qin to you?" The mysterious lady said. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. Wasn't this bet a little too big? The golden merman smiled secretly, looked at Qin Feiyang and the inner demons and asked, "Do you agree?" He didn't believe that the mysterious lady really had this ability. As long as Qin Feiyang and the inner demons didn't make a move, the merfolk clan was sure to win. Qin Feiyang and the inner demons looked at each other, and then at the mysterious lady. It wasn't that they didn't believe in the mysterious lady, but because the 5 merfolk ancestors' strength was not inferior to the mysterious lady. Moreover, the golden merman also had a supreme-grade divine artifact. Chapter 1869. At first, I thought that the Qin Emperor might have done something to them back then. That was why they resented him and wanted to rebel. However, that was not the case. Not only did the Qin Emperor not hurt them, but he also gave them a spatial divine item with a time array. Anyone with a conscience would be grateful for such a great kindness. However, not only did these bastards not have the slightest bit of gratitude, but they repaid kindness with evil. This is simply unforgivable. The mysterious lady looked at the 5 merfolk ancestors gloomily, her heart filled with unprecedented anger. Hearing these words, Qin Feiyang and the inner demons looked at each other again and nodded at the same time. Qin Feiyang looked down at the 5 merfolk ancestors and said, "Great-grandmother's decision is our decision." Haha. The 5 merfolk ancestors immediately laughed. They actually bet the fate of the great Qin on Tantai Li. It seemed that this Qin Feiyang was just a fool. Looking at the expressions of the 5, the mysterious lady sneered. "Do you think that victory is already in your hands?" The 5 of them were silent. However, their disdainful expressions were enough to prove their thoughts at the moment. "I have to say that you are too naive." The mysterious lady sneered and shouted, "Feiyang, give me the divine crystal." Divine crystal? Qin Feiyang was taken aback, a little confused. What did great-grandmother want with the divine crystal now? He naturally knew the power of the divine crystal. At most, it could only be regarded as a high-grade divine artifact. Therefore, even if the divine crystal was revived, it would not be of much help in this battle. You and I both know great-grandmother's methods and character. She definitely won't do anything meaningless. Since she wants it, just give it to her. The inner demons secretly said. Qin Feiyang nodded, took out the divine crystal, and handed it to the mysterious lady. The mysterious lady grabbed the divine crystal, looked at the 5 merfolk ancestors, and sneered. Prepare to despair. As soon as she finished speaking, the mysterious lady waved her hand, and the 10 stone pagodas floating around her suddenly soared into the sky. Deity, did you notice that the 10 stone pagodas look a little familiar? The inner demons secretly said. They do seem a little familiar, Qin Feiyang mumbled. Dusty memories surfaced in his mind. It's them. Qin Feiyang and the inner demons looked at each other in disbelief. These 10 stone pagodas were exactly the same as the pill pagodas in the 9 great regions, as well as the sacred pagoda in the main pagoda. The pill towers in the 9 regions and the sacred tower in the main tower were the places where the heavenly lightning flame, heavenly astral flame, frigid ice flame, and the other alchemy flames were sealed. So they are all divine artifacts. Qin Feiyang murmured. Back then, when they fought against the Mu family, no matter how they fought, even if they self-destructed, the pill pagoda still stood tall. At that time, he had a feeling that these stone towers were not simple. It turned out to be true. No, to be exact, the power of these stone towers far exceeded his imagination at that time. Rumble. The 10 stone pagodas that soared into the sky emitted a dazzling divine light. Fuse. The mysterious madam looked at the 10 stone pagodas with an indescribable gleam in her eyes as she shouted. As soon as she finished speaking, the divine crystal in the mysterious lady's hand soared through the air and floated in the middle of the 10 stone towers. Buzz. The divine crystal shone brightly and connected to the 10 stone pagodas. At that moment, the 10 stone pagodas quickly overlapped with a loud rumbling sound. A monstrous divine power erupted like a volcano. Qin Feiyang was surprised. This scene was exactly the same as when the demon ancestor fused the demon tower and the demon palace. Could it be? These 10 stone pagodas were also a divine artifact that had been separated? The 10 stone pagodas that overlapped with each other shone brightly. Finally, when the light dissipated, a stone pagoda that was more than 10,000 feet tall appeared. The merged stone pagoda only had 10 floors in total, but the aura that it emitted had already surpassed the supreme grade divine artifact and reached the level of a peak divine artifact. Sure enough, Qin Feiyang murmured. The faces of the 5 mermaid ancestors had already turned pale. It turned out that this was the true face of the 10 stone pagodas. Are you afraid now? What will really scare you is yet to come, the mysterious lady shouted. Accompanied by a loud clang, the divine crystal that was suspended in the air swept to the top of the stone pagoda, and then embedded itself on the top of the pagoda. Rumble. Immediately, an even more terrifying divine power surged out. This divine power had reached the level of a legendary divine artifact. Damn! No wonder great-grandmother was so confident. It turns out that this stone pagoda is a divine artifact comparable to the demon tower. The inner demons were shocked. I also felt that the power of the divine crystal didn't seem to be unleashed. So this is the case. Qin Feiyang murmured. This thing is called the divine pagoda. Back then, the Qin emperor took it apart to protect the 9 regions and the central divine kingdom. Originally, with the divine pagoda, the forgotten continent would never have to worry. However, I didn't expect that my good junior brother would be jealous and join forces with the Mu family to assassinate me and take away the most important part of the divine pagoda, the divine crystal. However, he didn't know the true use of the divine crystal, because the Qin emperor only told me the secret of the divine crystal. But other than me, there were 2 other people who knew. They were Mu Changfeng and Mu Changyun. After all, they are Mu Tianyang's sons. But such important information, they definitely wouldn't tell the chief pagoda master. So the secret of the divine crystal was kept. The mysterious madam looked at the 5 mermaid ancestors and said, "Of course." She was also saying this for Qin Feiyang and the others to hear. I see. No wonder the Mu family, and you all wanted the divine crystal. Qin Feiyang said. That's right. How could such an important thing fall into the hands of the Mu family? But in the end, fortunately, you got it. The mysterious madam turned to Qin Feiyang and said with a smile. Qin Feiyang said helplessly, You should have told me this earlier. The divine pagoda is a legendary divine artifact. With your strength at that time, you couldn't fuse them. What's the use of telling you? Moreover, at that time, I wasn't ready. The mysterious madam said. That's true. At that time our cultivation base was too weak. Qin Feiyang nodded. Miss, since the divine pagoda is so powerful, why didn't you ask this kid for the divine crystal earlier? If you asked for the divine crystal when we separated in the glacier forest, we wouldn't have to run to Great Qin now. The monkey-faced old man looked at the mysterious madam helplessly. The situation was urgent at that time. I didn't think of it at all. The mysterious madam smiled bitterly and said, But there are gains and losses. If we didn't run to Great Qin, old Qin would have blown himself up long ago. That's true. The monkey-faced old man nodded, looking at the 5 mermaid ancestors. At this moment, they were standing in the void, feeling the terrifying aura of the divine pagoda. They were all trembling. Now their minds were full of fear. They thought that they would win, but they didn't expect the mysterious madam to have such a terrifying divine artifact. A legendary divine artifact. This was an invincible existence. What should they do? Is the mermaid clan really going to die today? Come on, let me see what kind of ability you heartless things have to covet this continent. The mysterious madam shouted. The 5 mermaid ancestors' eyes trembled. The dozens of false gods behind the 5 of them, as well as the thousands of mermaids, all had pale faces, without any light. The 2 mermaid ancestors that appeared in Undersea City were also there. The wings on their backs had also changed from 3 to 4 pairs. Obviously, they had all broken through to the battle sage realm. However, at this moment, looking at Qin Feiyang and the others, they were also full of fear. Plop. Finally, some mermaids couldn't help but kneel down in despair. Don't kill us. We were wrong, we shouldn't have rebelled. Please, for the sake of the first mermaid emperor and the others, give our mermaid clan a way out. 5 patriarchs, I beg you, please let go of me. Our mermaid clan, after the disaster 10,000 years ago, it wasn't easy for us to recover. We can't repeat the same mistake. The 5 mermaid ancestors turned to look at their clansmen behind them, their faces pale. Was the fate of their mermaid clan really unchangeable? Were they really going to live under the rule of humans forever? They couldn't accept it. Is it too late for you to realize it now? Tens of thousands of creatures in the 9 prefectures died tragically in your hands. Only death can atone for such heinous sins. Old Qin roared in grief and indignation. The 5 mermaid ancestors' eyes trembled. Actually, I don't feel much about you killing the creatures of the 9 prefectures. After all, my hands are also stained with blood. But you shouldn't have betrayed the Great Qin Empire and the Qin Emperor. This is absolutely unforgivable. The mysterious madam shouted, and the divine pagoda, carrying with it the power to destroy the world, rushed toward the group of people. I don't accept this. The golden mermaid roared. The golden bead in his hand shone brightly and blasted toward the divine pagoda. Humph! The inner demon snorted coldly, used the Xing formula, and rushed to the golden bead in one step. He grabbed it in his hand, and his divine consciousness emerged, instantly erasing the blood contract inside. Damn it! Return our clan's sacred artifact to us. The golden mermaid roared. The inner demons looked at the golden mermaid with disdain, turned around, and walked back to Qin Feiyang without looking back. Boom. At this moment, the divine pagoda fell. Ah! Accompanied by a series of screams, the bodies of the 5 mermaid ancestors immediately shattered in the void, and flesh and blood flew all over the sky. The other mermaids were also buried under the divine pagoda. When the dust settled, except for Qin Feiyang and the others, there was no other mermaid left. They were all wiped out. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and scanned the surroundings. The void as far as his eyes could see was filled with a bloody mist and a tragic aura. In a trance, He even heard the desperate screams of people before they died. A moment later, Qin Feiyang sighed deeply and said, "These people are truly monstrous in their sins." The inner demons asked, "What about the mermaids of the Sea of Despair?" Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said, "They are just the lowest level mermaids. I don't think they participated in the rebellion." Qin Feiyang. However, before Qin Feiyang finished speaking, a voice came from afar. Genius remembered the address of this site in 1 second. Mobile version of reading website M. Chapter 1870. This voice, Qin Feiyang was stunned. He raised his head and looked in the direction of the voice. He saw a middle-aged man about 40 years old flying over from the distant void. Although the middle-aged man was a human, he had the aura of a merman. "There's another merman?" The mysterious lady raised her eyebrows and was about to kill the middle-aged man. Qin Feiyang quickly grabbed the mysterious lady and said, "Great-grandmother, don't." "What's wrong?" The mysterious lady turned and looked at him suspiciously. "This," Qin Feiyang stammered, looking a little flustered. The inner demons joked, "Great-grandmother, you really can't kill this person, because he's my future father-in-law." "Future father-in-law?" The mysterious lady was stunned. Zhao Tailai Yishu and the others were also shocked. The inner demons said, "He's the mermaid princess father." "Who asked you to talk?" Qin Feiyang glared at the inner demons and went to greet the mermaid emperor. "Feiyang, it's really you." After the two met, the mermaid emperor looked very excited. Qin Feiyang smiled and asked suspiciously, "Uncle, why are you here?" "It's a long story. Last night I suddenly sensed 5 terrifying auras in the Sea of Despair. At that time, I thought it was a strong enemy, but when I followed them, I found that they were actually mermen. It was only then that I realized that there were so many terrifying false gods and war gods hidden in the mermaid clan." The mermaid emperor sighed. The mysterious lady flew over and said coldly, "It seems that you didn't rebel with them." Hearing this, the mermaid emperor glared at the mysterious lady and said, "The Qin emperor has given the mermaid clan a new life. How could I rebel?" "Not bad. You have a conscience. I admire you." The mysterious lady was not angry. Instead, a smile appeared on her face. "Actually, I wanted to stop them. But with my strength, how could they listen to me?" The mermaid emperor sighed. "Fortunately, you didn't come out to stop them. Otherwise, with their personalities, they would have killed you without hesitation." Old Qin said, "Yeah. I really don't understand. What are they trying to achieve by doing this? Isn't it good to live a normal life?" The mermaid emperor sighed. Qin Feiyang said, "Not everyone is as indifferent as Uncle." Alas. The mermaid emperor sighed deeply. He looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Where is my daughter?" "She." Qin Feiyang wanted to say something but hesitated. There was a trace of sadness on his face. The mermaid emperor's eyelids twitched as he urged, "Hurry up and say something." "I'm sorry, Uncle." Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and looked at the mermaid emperor. "Uncle, she's dead." "What?" The mermaid emperor's body trembled. He grabbed Qin Feiyang's clothes and roared, "Why didn't you protect her?" "I also want to protect her. I want to protect all my relatives. But there are always helplessness in this world." Qin Feiyang lowered his head and said. When old Qin heard this, he suddenly had an uneasy premonition in his heart. He asked, "Feiyang, what do you mean?" "Not only the mermaid princess, mother, the little prince, grandpa, Yanwei, Jiangjingi, and all the people and beasts around me have died in the sea of reincarnation," Qin Feiyang said. "What?" Old Qin's eyes trembled as he asked. "In other words, only the few of you survived?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. "How could this be?" Old Qin murmured. Sorrow came from his heart. "But don't worry. They won't really die. Including the people of the 9 regions." Qin Feiyang clenched his hands and said with an incomparably firm gaze, "What do you want to do?" The mysterious lady raised her eyebrows. The inner demons pursed his lips and said, "It can be done? It must be to open the gate of rebirth and resurrect them." "Gate of rebirth?" The mermaid emperor let go of Qin Feiyang and looked at everyone suspiciously. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Uncle, don't worry about this. Go back to the Sea of Despair first. I promise that I will bring your daughter back to visit you. The Mermaid Emperor looked deeply at Qin Feiyang and sighed. He patted Qin Feiyang's shoulder and smiled. Don't force yourself too much. Although he was not strong, he had lived for so many years. At a glance, he knew that Qin Feiyang would definitely pay a high price to resurrect everyone. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then everyone, I will take my leave. If you have time, come to the Sea of Despair as a guest. The Mermaid Clan welcomes you at any time. The Mermaid Emperor looked at Old Qin and the others and smiled. Of course. Old Qin and the others nodded. Then, the Mermaid Emperor did not stay any longer and turned to leave. After watching the Mermaid Emperor disappear, the mysterious lady retracted her gaze and looked at everyone. Although this person's strength is not good, he has a grateful heart. It seems that there is no need to eliminate him. Everyone nodded. Even the inner demons did not object. Then next, the mysterious lady's face turned serious. She looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Let's talk about the Gate of Rebirth. I have made up my mind. There is nothing to talk about. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Are you stupid? The mysterious madam was furious and shouted, Do you think your mother, your grandfather, your friends and companions will be grateful to you for what you've done? Wrong. Not only will they not be grateful to you, but they will also hate themselves. So what? If I have no family and no friends, there is no meaning in my life. Qin Feiyang lowered his head. Who said you have no family now? No friends? The people and beasts standing here, which one of them doesn't treat you like family? The mysterious lady said angrily. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at Old Man Qin, Zhao Tailai and the others. Everyone was also looking at him with a smile on their faces. This smile made him feel warm in his heart. However, he did not change his mind. He retracted his gaze and turned to leave without saying a word. Where are you going? Stop right there. The mysterious lady shouted and was about to chase after him. The inner demons reached out and stopped the mysterious lady. Looking at Qin Feiyang who disappeared from their sight step by step, the inner demons sighed. Let him be. The mysterious lady said. You also let him mess around? I am his inner demons. In this world, the person who understands him the most is me. All these years, why did he work so hard? Isn't it to protect the people around him? Although the chaos of the demon ancestor, Mu Tianyang, and the mermaid clan has been quelled, his heart is even emptier than before. The reason is that he lost his family and companions. If he doesn't open the gate of rebirth and revive everyone, he won't be able to rest in peace for the rest of his life. Life will also lose its meaning, and he will be like a walking corpse. I don't think this is the ending you want to see. The inner demons looked at the mysterious lady and laughed. The mysterious lady lowered her head and fell silent. Forgotten continent. In the second area, deep in a mountain, two figures floated in the air. It was Dong Xingyang the snow python. Beside him, Snowflake, Bloodblade, and the demon tower were repairing themselves. Dong Xingyang glanced at the surrounding mountains and rivers and sighed. I really didn't expect that the plan this time would fail. The snow python said, The failure lies in the inner demons. Why didn't you control him as well? I was indeed careless. One wrong step and the whole game is lost. However, at that time it was very difficult to control the inner demons. After all, he was moving, and the seal of fate couldn't lock onto him. Dong Xingyang said. Then what should we do now? You've planned for so many years, are you going to fail just like that? The snow python asked. Let's wait. The demon ancestor Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing are all dead. We can only wait for the next person to open the eye of despair, the eye of evil, and the eye of heaven. Dong Xingyang said. The snow python looked at Dong Xingyang with a gentle gaze that had never been seen before. It suddenly smiled and said, The demon ancestor and the others are not dead. Not dead. Dong Xingyang was stunned and turned to look at the snow python. A bloody light flashed in front of the snow python, and 4 drops of blood appeared. This is... Dong Xingyang was surprised. These 4 drops of blood belonged to the demon ancestor, Mo Long, Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing. At that time, when my divine power collided with Qin Yuan, it stirred up dust in the sky. At that time, when Qin Yuan and Qin Feiyang weren't paying attention, I collected their blood. The snow python laughed. Good. Very good. Dong Zhengyang was overjoyed and said, Qin Feiyang will definitely open the gate of rebirth. At that time, as long as these 4 drops of blood are sent into the gate of rebirth, they will naturally be reborn. Yes. The snow python nodded. Dong Zhengyang asked, what about Xin Mei and Mu Tianjun? Mu Tianjun turned into ashes. Even his bones are gone. There is no way to collect his flesh and blood. As for Xin Mei, she is of no value to us at all, so I didn't collect her blood. The snow python said, you are silly. Xin Mei is of no value to us, but she is very important to Mu Tianyang. Otherwise, he wouldn't have risked his life to protect Xin Mei when the space divine item was destroyed. Dong Zhengyang sighed. Then we will tell Mu Tianyang that Xin Mei is gone, and there is no way to revive her. The snow python said indifferently. That is the only way. Dong Zhengyang nodded. You want to use the seal of fate to control them, and collect the blood of the demon ancestor and the others. This old man is really curious. What are you planning? An old voice suddenly sounded. Then, Qin Yuan appeared in front of the 2 of them out of thin air. Old thing, you are really haunting us. The snow python immediately shouted and hurriedly collected the blood of the demon ancestor and the others. Then it protected Dong Zhengyang behind it. Don't be nervous. Dong Zhengyang comforted the snow python and walked to its side. He looked at Qin Yuan and said with a smile, long time no see. It has indeed been many years. However, this old man always thought that you had fallen. I didn't expect that you had changed your identity. Qin Yuan said. There is no other way. That terrifying existence wants to kill me. If I don't change my identity in advance, I will definitely be destroyed. After all, whether it is me or you, we are just ants in this world. We have no right to choose. Dong Zhengyang looked at the sky with a trace of inexplicable sadness and helplessness. Chapter 1871. Qin Yuan looked at Dong Zhengyang, was silent for a while, and then said, well, tell me everything. Do you really want to know? Dong Zhengyang retracted his gaze and asked Qin Yuan. If you can't convince me, I will kill you and destroy the blood of the demon ancestor. Qin Yuan said. You dare? The snow python stared at Qin Yuan angrily. See if I dare. Qin Yuan glanced at her indifferently. Swear, don't worry. Dong Zhengyang looked at the snow python and said intimately, then looked at Qin Yuan and smiled. If I can convince you, can you promise me one thing? What is it? Qin Yuan was suspicious. Dong Zhengyang said, when Qin Feiyang opens the gate of rebirth, send the blood of the demon ancestor and the others into the gate of rebirth. Qin Yuan frowned. The snow python sneered. Old thing, don't you dare? Qin Yuan glanced at the snow python and looked at Dong Zhengyang. It seems that you are very confident that you can convince me. Dong Zhengyang smiled and said nothing. Qin Yuan pondered for a long time and nodded. Well, if you can really convince me, what's wrong with helping you? The imperial capital. A day and a night passed. The emperor, Emperor Hong, and Qin Sheng, the civil and military officials were still in the throne room and had not dispersed. From the beginning of the battle, there was no smile on their faces. After so long, there was no news at all. How was the battle in the Sea of Reincarnation? The emperor could no longer sit still. He glanced at the civil and military officials below and asked, who has established a contract bridge with Feiyang? The civil and military officials looked at each other and finally shook their heads. The emperor looked at Emperor Hong and asked, Grandfather, what about you? I don't either. Emperor Hong sighed. In such a big imperial capital, no one has established a contract bridge with him. It can be seen that Feiyang doesn't even have a friend in the imperial capital. It's all my fault. The emperor blamed himself. Your Majesty, what did you do wrong? Qin Sheng was suspicious. The civil and military officials couldn't figure it out. Whether he had friends or not was Qin Feiyang's own business. What did it have to do with His Majesty? If it weren't for us, Would Fei Yong have fallen into a situation where the entire world is his enemy? If he hadn't fallen into a situation where the whole world was his enemy, would he have no friends at all? If this is not our fault, then whose fault is it? The emperor said furiously. Everyone fell silent. Your Majesty, when His Highness was in the imperial capital, he was very close to Sun Dahai of the Treasure Pavilion. In my opinion, Sun Dahai should be able to contact your Highness. An old official suddenly said. Sun Dahai. The emperor was stunned and hurriedly said, call him to the throne room immediately. No need to trouble Sun Dahai. At this moment, Lu Zheng suddenly appeared outside the hall and strode into the throne room. Lu Zheng. The emperor's eyes lit up. Lu Zheng glanced at the civil and military officials, then looked at the emperor and snorted coldly. I knew it. Other than Old Qin, no one in the entire imperial palace has established a contract bridge with little cousin. The emperor looked ashamed. Lu Zheng sighed and said, Uncle, in fact, you shouldn't blame yourself too much. After all, you were also trying to protect little cousin before. Uncle. The emperor looked at Lu Zheng in a daze. For so many years, it was the first time he heard Lu Zheng call him uncle. The word uncle almost made him cry. Lu Zheng smiled faintly, took out the image crystal, and sent a message to Qin Fei Yong. The emperor also restrained his mind, and quietly stared at the image crystal in Lu Zheng's hand. Emperor Hong, Qin Sheng, and the civil and military officials were also extremely nervous for a moment. However, after a long while the image crystal did not show the slightest reaction. How could this be? Could it be that His Highness? The civil and military officials were in an uproar. Shut up. Lu Zheng glanced at them, shouted coldly with a gloomy face, and sent a message to Lu Hong and others. But in the end, no one responded to him. No, Lu Zheng shook his head. He was very clear about Qin Fei Yong's current strength. It was impossible for him to encounter any mishaps. But why didn't anyone react? The emperor's gaze turned and fell on Emperor Hong. He said worriedly, Grandfather Fei Yong and the others. Don't panic. Emperor Hong shouted. After pondering for a moment, he said gloomily, I'll go to Devil Dragon Island to take a look. I'll go too. Lu Zheng said. Emperor Hong said angrily, What are you going to do? Stay here and wait for me. Qin Fei Yong is my cousin. Hong is my beloved woman. Fatso and the others are also my most cherished friends. You told me not to go. Aren't you just letting me suffer here? Lu Zheng shouted. Emperor Hong gave him a deep look, opened a teleportation gate, and said, Come with me. The two walked in one after another. When the Blood Kirin told Qin Fei Yong the coordinates of Devil Dragon Island, Emperor Hong and Lu Zheng were both present. Therefore they also heard it. After the two left, the emperor and the others waited anxiously in the throne room. As Lu Zheng said, this was really a torment. Time passed bit by bit. Finally, the horizon was white. The sun slowly rose from the east, and the sun shone on the earth. At this moment, Emperor Hong and Lu Zheng returned. Both of them looked very tired, and their eyes were unfocused. How is it? The emperor hurriedly stood up and asked the two of them. Devil Dragon Island has disappeared. Whether it's Fei Yong or Devil Ancestor, neither of them have been found. Emperor Hong lowered his head and muttered. Although his voice wasn't loud, it resounded in everyone's mind. Boom. Everyone felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Especially the emperor. His entire body was paralyzed on the dragon throne, his face full of pain. Qin Sheng looked at the emperor worriedly and asked, Lord Emperor Hong, did you not find a single person? No. In that sea area, other than the fluctuations of the battle and that tragic aura, there was nothing else. As Emperor Hong spoke, he also closed his eyes in pain. So, Your Highness and the Devil Ancestor have died together? Qin Sheng murmured, suddenly raised his head, and roared in grief. The heavens are jealous of the talents. The heavens are jealous of the talents. Spirit state. No one knew what was going on in the throne room at the moment. Tang Hai, Zhao Tailai, Chui Li the Golden Leopard, and the Blood Kirin were all lying on the ground. After the bloody battle in the Sea of Reincarnation, they were already exhausted. Now they didn't even want to move. They just wanted to lie here quietly and have a good sleep. The Blood Kirin looked at the sky and grinned. Do you think we are dreaming? Facing the Devil Ancestor and Mu Tianyang, as well as Snow and Bloodblade, these terrifying existences, we can still survive. It is indeed like a dream. Zhao Tailai laughed softly. Don't talk, let me have a good sleep. Tang Hai murmured to himself as he slowly closed his eyes. Not long after, he fell asleep. Zhao Tailai glanced at Tang Hai and smiled helplessly. This guy actually fell asleep. After all, he has been fighting 1 against 2 in this battle. He must be more tired than you and me. The Golden Leopard shook his head and smiled. Zhao Tailai said, speaking of which, the most tired person should be Cui Li. Yes. If he hadn't been holding the 6 war gods back, we would have been dead. The Golden Leopard said. Zhao Tailai, the Golden Leopard, and the Blood Kirin turned to look at Cui Li, and found that he was already fast asleep. This guy, it seems like he's really tired. Zhao Tailai shook his head and smiled. Right. The Golden Leopard's eyes lit up. Haven't you always wanted to know what Tang Hai looks like? Now is a good chance. Yes. Old Zhao, take off his mask and look. The Blood Kirin said. Zhao Tailai hesitated. That's not good. It's taking advantage of him. The Golden Leopard said. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This. Zhao Tailai thought for a while, then gritted his teeth, raised his arm, and reached for the mask on Tang Hai's face. Slap. But then, the inner demon stepped forward and slapped Zhao Tailai's hand away. He looked at Zhao Tailai, the Golden Leopard, and the Blood Kirin and scolded. If you're tired, rest. Don't think about this nonsense all day. The man and the 2 beasts laughed. But then again, what does this guy look like? I'm so curious. The inner demons muttered. He turned around and squatted on the ground, blocking Zhao Tailai and the Blood Kirin's view. He then took off Tang Hai's mask. What? He actually, immediately. He was stunned. Master, what? What? Don't block us. Let us have a look. You can't be so selfish. Zhao Tailai and the Blood Kirin heard the inner demon's exclamation, and became even more curious. So this is your real face. The inner demons ignored them. He looked at Tang Hai's face and muttered. Then he put the mask back on Tang Hai's face. Then, the inner demon stood up and turned around to look at Zhao Tailai and the Blood Kirin. He said angrily, peeping on other people's privacy is very rude. Behave yourselves. As soon as he finished speaking, he started to walk towards Old Man Qin and the others. He was the one who was peeping. How dare he scold us? How shameless. Zhao Tailai and the Blood Kirin looked at the inner demons with disdain. The mysterious lady looked at Tang Hai and the others. Then she looked at the inner demons and smiled. Are they all tired? Of course. It's such a difficult battle. Even a machine can't take it. The inner demons smiled. The slaughter area had already disappeared. He didn't look angry at all. He looked very friendly. Thank you for your hard work. Right. When you went to the Forgotten Continent to kill Mu Tianyang, did you see him killing people? The mysterious lady asked. No. We went straight to the glacier forest. We didn't go anywhere else. The inner demons shook his head. Yi Shu sighed and said, I hope they are all safe. Now there is another problem. The king and King Hong haven't received any news from us. They must be worried. But the teleportation altar was destroyed. The time gate won't open until tomorrow. This, Old Qin couldn't help but sigh. That's not a big deal. We have to go back sooner or later. Now I am worried about Fei Yang. Where did he go? The mysterious lady frowned and looked in the direction that Qin Fei Yang had disappeared. Her eyes were full of worry. Please remember the domain name of this book. Literature Library Mobile Version Website. Chapter 1872. Yi Province. A white-robed young man was walking silently in the void. He was like a lonely traveler, not saying a word from beginning to end. Behind him, a river of blood was floating. That was real blood, a river of blood that had gathered. This blood was from both humans and beasts. The white-robed young man was Qin Fei Yang. At this moment, He was collecting the blood of the creatures of the 9 continents. Along the way, he had seen too many mountains of corpses and seas of blood, and felt a lot of despair and resentment. This made his heart particularly painful. Every injustice has its perpetrator, every debt has its debtor. Even if the Qin clan was wrong, they should be blamed. Why did they kill the creatures of the 9 continents? What did they do wrong? Why did they have to suffer such an unfair massacre? If it weren't for the fact that the mermaids of the undersea city didn't participate, he would definitely kill them all. Even if the mermaid princess came back to life, she wouldn't be able to stop him. The rising sun warmed people's hearts, but it couldn't dispel the blood mist that permeated between heaven and earth, and the resentment that couldn't be dispelled. Time passed little by little. Night fell. Qin Feiyang's footsteps had already traveled all over the 9 continents. Finally, he returned to his original starting point, Iron Ox Town. The river of blood behind him had turned into a sea of blood. This was the blood of the creatures of the 9 continents. But it wasn't all. Because many people and beasts had been destroyed, and even their blood couldn't be found. This night he stood in the sky above Iron Ox Town, recalling the scenes of the past. There were joys and sorrows. It was very long, but also very short. Life was like this. When you walk, you feel that every step is difficult and long, but when you look back, everything is just a blink of an eye. No matter what the outcome is, you have done it. Uncle Yuan is sincerely happy and proud for you. Early morning. An old laughter suddenly spread in the void, and Qin Yuan appeared beside Qin Feiyang out of thin air. Thank you. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Qin Yuan, and a long-lost smile appeared on his face. Qin Yuan glanced at the sea of blood behind him and asked, "Is this the blood of the creatures of the 9 continents?" "Yes. They are innocent. They shouldn't have died like this." Qin Feiyang nodded. Qin Yuan retracted his gaze and smiled. "I won't interfere with what you want to do as long as you don't regret it. You've watched me grow up. You must know very well that even if you intervene, you can't stop me." Qin Feiyang smiled. "You brat." Qin Yuan shook his head and smiled. He lowered his head and muttered to himself, "About Dong Zhengyang." Qin Feiyang was stunned. He turned to look at Qin Yuan and asked, "You went to see him?" "Yes. He told me a lot." Qin Yuan nodded. "Who exactly is Dong Zhengyang?" Qin Feiyang frowned. After this incident, he did not believe that Dong Zhengyang was simply a descendant of the Dong family. Qin Yuan said, "Before me, the guardian of this continent was actually Dong Zhengyang." "What?" Qin Feiyang was shocked. He did not expect this answer at all. "Wait. To be precise, the real Dong Zhengyang is already dead." Qin Yuan said. Qin Feiyang was surprised. "You mean he possessed Dong Zhengyang?" "Yes." Qin Yuan nodded. "Then who is he?" Qin Feiyang asked. Qin Yuan said, "His original body was a winged dragon. He was a partner with the snow python of the Forgotten Continent." Winged dragon? Qin Feiyang was shocked. This winged dragon was a real divine dragon. He was killed by the small beast. Now he is Dong Zhengyang. Dong Zhengyang is him. So in the future, don't think of him as a winged dragon. Just think of him as Dong Zhengyang. Qin Yuan smiled. What? He was killed by the small beast? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Wasn't he the guardian of this continent in the past? How could he be killed by the small beast? Qin Yuan said. His death is related to his fighting soul. Fighting soul? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Yes. The fighting soul that he activated is called the Eye of Destiny. Together with your Eye of Heaven, it is ranked third among the top 10 fighting souls. Qin Yuan said. Eye of Destiny. Qin Feiyang frowned and asked suspiciously, what's so scary about the Eye of Destiny? Why would it bring death to him? The Eye of Destiny can see the fate of the future. Furthermore, as his cultivation level increases, the future he can see will be further and further away. Qin Yuan said. It's so heaven-defying? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Yes. Back then, he saw his own future and knew that the small beast was coming to kill him. Therefore, he split a part of his soul and escaped in advance. Qin Yuan smiled. Qin Feiyang was in disbelief and said, why is such a heaven-defying fighting soul ranked below the Eye of Heaven? Logically speaking, it should be ranked first. Because the Eye of Destiny doesn't have much killing power, it is ranked below the Eye of Reincarnation and the Eye of Heaven. Qin Yuan smiled faintly. Qin Feiyong nodded and asked, did the small beast kill him because he touched some taboo? Yes. He saw a future that he shouldn't have seen. Qin Yuan said. A future that he shouldn't have seen? Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned and asked, what kind of future is it? Regarding this, Qin Yuan pondered for a moment. He smiled and said, if you have the chance, you can ask him personally. Also, I don't want to talk about how he used the seal of destiny to control all of you. Qin Feiyong was speechless and said, you clearly know. Why do you want me to ask him? Qin Yuan said, because I still can't accept these things. Therefore, I can't tell you. Qin Feiyong's pupils shrank. Even Uncle Yuan couldn't accept it. What kind of future did Dong Jinyang see? After a moment of silence, Qin Feiyong said helplessly, all right, I'll ask him when I have the chance. When did you become a guardian? It's a coincidence. When the small beast killed him, I was looking for a few herbs nearby, and was discovered by the small beast. I thought that it would kill me too, but I didn't expect that it would make me the guardian of this continent. Qin Yuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. Qin Feiyong was stunned. So you agreed in a daze? Wrong. Qin Yuan said. Wrong? Qin Feiyong was stunned. I didn't become a guardian in a daze. In fact, I didn't want to be a guardian. Qin Yuan sighed. What do you mean? Qin Feiyong was puzzled. My current cultivation base is half-step Divine Lord. This was raised by the small beast. You know this. Qin Yuan said. Qin Feiyong nodded. You've already said this in the glacier forest. Qin Yuan said. Then do you know why it helped me raise my cultivation base? Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment and said with a smile. Isn't this simple? To protect a continent, one naturally needs to be strong enough. Yes. After every guardian takes office, their cultivation base will be raised to half-step Divine Lord by the small beast. But do you know? Although we can become stronger in an instant, the price we have to pay is something that no one can bear. Qin Yuan said. What price? Qin Feiyong was puzzled. We can't cultivate anymore. In other words, our cultivation base will be stuck at half-step Divine Lord forever. Qin Yuan said. What? Then why are you still a guardian? Qin Feiyong said angrily. For the great Qin. Qin Yuan said with a smile. For the great Qin, Qin Feiyong murmured. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and his eyes trembled. I remember that at that time, you weren't born yet. Even your mother wasn't pregnant with you. But you also know that long before your father succeeded the throne, the demon ancestor and the imperial preceptor had already taken control of the great Qin. Qin Yuan said. Father and great-grandfather have already told me about this. The demon ancestor let Zhuge Shenyun lurk in the imperial palace as the imperial preceptor in order to monitor the great Qin, and wait for a descendant of the Qin clan who has undergone atavism. Qin Feiyong said. That's right. You should know my identity now. I'm your grandfather, the subordinate of Emperor Chun. Qin Yuan said. Qin Feiyong nodded. Your grandfather and I have a master-servant relationship, and we are also very good friends. He didn't hide anything about the imperial preceptor and the demon ancestor's scheme from me. Back then, it wasn't just your grandfather. I was also worried. But what could we do? The demon ancestor's foundation is so terrifying. We could only endure. So when I met Small Beast and heard that after becoming a guardian, my strength would rise to half-step Divine Lord, I agreed without hesitation. Qin Yuan said. Uncle Yuan. Qin Feiyong looked at the old man in front of him, tears falling uncontrollably from his eyes. Uncle Yuan sacrificed so much to protect the great Qin and the descendants of the Qin clan. Although becoming a guardian means that I can't participate in the conflicts of the continent, I can intimidate the demon ancestor and wait for the rise of the Qin clan's descendants. Qin Yuan said with a smile. Uncle Yuan, thank you. Qin Feiyong knelt in the void and kowtowed heavily to Qin Yuan. If not for Uncle Yuan's protection over the years, the Great Qin would have been destroyed by the demon ancestor and the Big Fish clan. The descendants of the Qin clan would probably have been wiped out as well. Qin Yuan stretched out his hand to help Qin Feiyang up and said with a smile, "Silly child, Uncle Yuan is also a part of the Great Qin. Protecting the Great Qin is Uncle Yuan's responsibility. What are you thanking me for?" Qin Feiyang wiped away his tears and asked, "Does grandfather know about this?" "No. I didn't tell anyone." After Small Beast left, I returned to the imperial palace and quietly stayed by your grandfather's side like before. Later on, your mother was pregnant with you. You also know that the imperial preceptor had already infiltrated the imperial palace to monitor everyone. So, whenever the emperor's concubine was pregnant, everyone would be especially nervous. Me too. Back then, when you were still in your mother's womb, I had been secretly observing you. And when you gradually formed, I realized that you were a little different from the other princes and princesses. Qin Yuan said. Genius remembered this site's address in a second. Apex mobile version website. Chapter 1873. What's different? Qin Feiyang was curious. At first, this old man didn't understand. Later, when you were about to be born, this old man finally noticed the difference. It turns out that in your bloodline power, you were born with the aura of the purple gold dragon blood. But the aura of this purple gold dragon blood is extremely weak. Other than this old man, no one else noticed it. Qin Yuan laughed. I remember my father and great-grandfather said that when I was 10 years old, my bloodline power began to show signs of atavism. It seems that it's not without reason. Qin Feiyang laughed proudly. Qin Yuan shook his head and laughed. At that time, this old man discovered this and was very happy, because in the future, you will definitely be able to activate the purple gold dragon blood. But, speaking of this, Qin Yuan sighed, his face full of melancholy. Demon ancestor? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes. If the demon ancestor knows about this, he will definitely be even crazier. However, this old man can't participate in these disputes. In the end, after thinking about it, I can only let nature take its course, but this old man has also made arrangements in advance. For example, the enchantment in your grandfather's walking stick was secretly set up by this old man. Qin Yuan laughed. So it's like this. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. After all, your parents have already discussed to give birth to you in the Liu family. This enchantment might be able to help you. And at that time, this old man specially left an anonymous note to tell your grandfather about the existence of the enchantment. But in the end, because of the appearance of Changshui and the ancient castle, this enchantment was useless at all. Qin Yuan shook his head and laughed. Although it was useless at that time, isn't it useful now? Qin Feiyang laughed. If it wasn't for this enchantment, the Liu family would have been razed to the ground by Zhuge Mingyang. This is the so-called unpredictable world. Later, your grandfather and grandfather were taken away by the demon ancestor. This old man was worried about their safety, so I entered the demonic dragon island and gave him a warning. It was also at that time that the demon ancestor finally knew that I was the guardian of this continent. As for what happened after that, you already know. When you were 10 years old, your father crippled your bloodline power and expelled you from the imperial capital. As for your mother, she couldn't bear to see you wandering outside alone. Thus, she came to find this old man and asked me to take care of you. However, your mother doesn't know. Even if she didn't come looking for this old man wouldn't sit idly by. Qin Yuan smiled. After Qin Feiyang heard this, he sighed and said, I really didn't expect that so many things had happened back then. The road to happiness is strewn with setbacks. If you hadn't experienced all those things back then, would you have your current accomplishments? Qin Yuan said. Qin Feiyang said with a wry smile. Your words are exactly the same as what the shadowless man said to me back then. The shadowless? Qin Yuan was puzzled. I've never seen him before, but whenever I'm about to give up, his voice will appear to encourage me. That's why I call him the shadowless. Qin Feiyang said. Qin Yuan said in surprise. I didn't expect that there was actually still someone secretly helping you. Yeah. I'm very grateful to him. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Suddenly he looked at Qin Yuan in surprise and said, Uncle Yuan, don't tell me that the shadowless man is you? This old man? Qin Yuan was stunned and shook his head. I'm not lying to you this time. It's really not this old man. Seeing that Qin Yuan didn't show any signs of lying, Qin Feiyang said with a smile, then I'm really looking forward to it. This old man is also looking forward to his appearance. After all, he has taken care of you. No matter what, this old man has to thank him properly. Qin Yuan said. Qin Feiyang smiled and said suspiciously, there's one thing that I still don't understand. I have no enmity with the snow python. Why would she make things difficult for me? Could it be because of Dong Xingyang? No. She made things difficult for you because of this old man. Qin Yuan shook his head. Why do you say that? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Qin Yuan pondered for a while and sighed. You don't know. In fact, the snow python is not a snow python. It's a white dragon. What? She's a white dragon? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Yes. Back then, when Yinglong was killed, her character became extremely violent, and she treated human lives like grass. The number of people who have died under her claws is innumerable. Later on, this old man couldn't stand it anymore, and reported this matter to Small Beast. When Small Beast learned about this, it directly used its magic power to turn her into a snow python. And she can never return to her white dragon body. Because of this, she has always hated this old man. You are the person that this old man cares about the most. Naturally, she doesn't like you. However, because of this old man, she didn't dare to really do anything to you. Qin Yuan said. I see. I thought that I had offended her somehow. Qin Feiyang pursed his lips. Qin Yuan said, didn't she ask you for the purple gold dragon blood? Yes. That time, the purple gold dragon blood in my body was almost drained by her. Qin Feiyang said. Qin Yuan said, she just wanted to fuse with the purple gold dragon blood to see if she could recover her white dragon body. Then did she recover? Qin Feiyang asked. No. But because she fused with the purple gold dragon blood, she also recovered some dragon aura. Qin Yuan said. Dragon aura. So it's her. Qin Feiyang muttered. He remembered that one time at the ice lake, he sensed a dragon aura. But this dragon aura was like a flash in the pan. He thought it was an illusion and didn't expect it to be the snow python. That's not right. Didn't she know that Yinglong was not dead? Why did she go crazy and kill people? Qin Feiyang said. She didn't know at that time. Because at that time, Yinglong was afraid of implicating her, and was also afraid that she would accidentally leak it, so he didn't tell her. Qin Yuan said. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. Suddenly, he thought that he seemed to have overlooked a more important problem. Uncle Yuan, just now you said that you reported this matter to the small beast. Does that mean that you can contact the golden small beast? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Indeed. Qin Yuan nodded. Qin Feiyang said, then quickly contact it. Contact it for what? Do you want to take back Cheng Shui just like that? Impossible. Although it is because of it that I became a guardian, in its eyes, I am nothing at all. If I annoy it, it will even kill me. Qin Yuan said. When Qin Feiyang heard this, a trace of disappointment appeared on his face. Don't be discouraged. I believe that with your talent, you will catch up with it sooner or later. At that time, you can find it openly and take back Cheng Shui. Qin Yuan smiled. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, should we tell the small beast that Yinglong didn't die and disappeared? I have already thought about this matter. Where it is possible to make mistakes, one should be lenient. Qin Yuan sighed. You are also a kind-hearted person. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, good will be rewarded with good. Qin Yuan chuckled. Perhaps. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, also, although Yinglong has opened the Eye of Destiny, Dong Xingyang has not. He should be unable to see the future now. No. Dong Xingyang has also opened the Eye of Destiny. Qin Yuan said. How is that possible? I have seen Dong Xingyang's battle soul. It is clearly an ancient mountain, and its special ability is also the gravity domain. Qin Feiyang said. This is only what you see on the surface. Not long ago, Yinglong told me that before the small beast killed him, he used the Eye of Destiny to see that a young man in the spiritual state would open the Eye of Destiny after his death. This young man is Dong Zhengyang. Indeed. When he possessed Dong Zhengyang, not only did he open the Eye of Destiny, but he also opened the Battle Soul, the ancient mountain. This means that he has 2 battle souls. However, he usually hides the Eye of Destiny, and no one knows about it. Qin Yuan said. He can really see the future? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Qin Yuan reminded him. The Eye of Destiny is very scary. You must be careful when you face him in the future. I know. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked. There is another question. Since Dong Zhengyang is so powerful, why wasn't he sent to the 2nd level by the power of the rules when he entered the miracle site? The Eye of Destiny can hide one's fate. In other words, no one can discover it. Qin Yuan said. It is indeed very powerful. Qin Feiyang mumbled. Qin Yuan smiled and said, by the way, the 10,000 beasts illustration was given to Dong Zhengyang by the snow python. The 10,000 beasts illustration belongs to the snow python? Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked suspiciously. Then why did it fall into the hands of the state preceptor? It has something to do with you. Qin Yuan smiled. Something to do with me? Qin Feiyang didn't understand. Back then, you were wanted by the emperor. Everyone related to you was interrogated by the state preceptor, including Dong Zhengyang. At that time, Dong Zhengyang wasn't as strong as the state preceptor. The state preceptor felt the aura of the 10,000 beasts illustration and snatched it from Dong Zhengyang. However, I didn't expect it to fall into your hands. You didn't see the snow python's expression when Cui Li took out the 10,000 beasts illustration. Qin Yuan shook his head and smiled. Haha. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh. Qin Yuan smiled and said, all right then, the matters here are almost settled. You can go back to the imperial capital. What about you? Qin Feiyang quickly asked. Qin Yuan said, this old man will first repair the teleportation altar, and then find a quiet place to think about some problems. What problems? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Nothing. Qin Yuan shook his head and smiled. With a wave of his hand, a man and a beast appeared in the void. Who did it? Qin Feiyang looked at the man and the beast with a cold light in his eyes. This man and beast were Tan Wu and the infernal divine hound. Dong Zhengyang. Qin Yuan sighed. This damn bastard. Qin Feiyang was furious. Enough. Dong Zhengyang was merciful. Otherwise, not even their bones would be left. Without bones, you can't resurrect them. And at that time we didn't find the 2 of them on the mountain peak. In the end, it was Dong Zhengyang who told this old man. This Tan Wu and the infernal divine hound are both promising talents. Since you want to open the gate of rebirth, you can resurrect them together. Qin Yuan said. I understand. Qin Feiyang nodded and put away the corpses of Tan Wu and the infernal divine hound. Then, he sent the sea of blood behind him to the Black Tortoise realm, and protected it with a divine force barrier to prevent it from evaporating and spilling down. After all, the cultivation of the creatures in the 9 continents was relatively weak. If they weren't protected, they would evaporate soon. Then let's go. It's already dawn. Don't let everyone wait too long. Qin Yuan waved his hand and disappeared with Qin Feiyang. Please remember the domain name of this book. The mobile version of the literature library reading website, M. Chapter 1874. Butterfly Valley. After this battle, this place had changed beyond recognition. Everyone gathered together, anxiously waiting for Qin Feiyang. After a day and a night of rest, Tang Hai and the others were in good spirits. The inner demons turned to look at Elder Qin and said, why don't you return to the capital first and tell Father and the others that you're safe? After a day and a night, the spatial gate in Elder Qin's hand could be opened. I'm worried if I don't see Feiyang return. Elder Qin shook his head. You still have us. Moreover, With my strength now, no one in the entire Great Qin or Forgotten Continent can hurt him. What are you worried about? The inner demons smiled. Elder Qin was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, "That's true. Then I'll go back first?" Go. Go back and tell them in advance so that they can relax. The inner demons said. Old Man Qin took out the replica space-time gate. Swoosh! However, at this moment, two figures, one old and one young, appeared out of thin air. It was Qin Yuan and Qin Feiyang. Feiyang, young master. A group of people immediately went up to greet him. Qin Feiyang looked at everyone and smiled apologetically. I've made you worry. What nonsense are you talking about? The mysterious lady rolled her eyes at him and looked at Qin Yuan with a smile. You must be the Uncle Yuan that Feiyang always talks about. Yes. Qin Yuan nodded and bowed. Greetings, madam. Don't. You're the protector of this continent. You can't accept such a great gift. The mysterious lady hurriedly said. Although I'm a protector, I'm also a citizen of the Great Qin. You're the wife of the previous emperor, so you should be respectful. Moreover, you took care of Feiyang in the Forgotten Continent. I should also thank you. Qin Yuan smiled. No. The person who should be thanking you is me. If it weren't for you silently protecting the Great Qin all these years, let alone Feiyang, the empire left behind by the previous emperor would have fallen into the hands of others. The mysterious lady said. Looking at how polite the two of them were, Qin Feiyang was speechless. Uncle Yuan, great-grandmother, can you stop flattering me? The inner demons chimed in. Yeah, we're a family. Is there a need for that? Qin Yuan and the mysterious madam were dumbfounded, after which they exchanged glances. The mysterious madam laughed. I didn't expect that we would be scolded by two little brats. However, they are right, we are all family. Being polite would only make us seem distant. Madam is right. Qin Yuan nodded and smiled. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, You guys chat first. I'll go and repair the altar. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded. Whoosh! Qin Yuan flickered and instantly vanished without a trace. Old Qin sighed and shook his head. This old fellow really concealed his strength deeply. You know Uncle Yuan? Qin Feiyang looked at Old Man Qin suspiciously. Isn't that obvious? When Emperor Chen was still on the throne, I was already a peak 9-star combat emperor. Of course I know Qin Yuan. Old Man Qin rolled his eyes at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked curiously, Then what kind of person was Uncle Yuan back then? At that time, he was already a false god. But in my impression, he didn't have any airs of a false god. He was a very low-key person. Usually, when he was by Emperor Chen's side, it was rare to see him say a word. However, I didn't expect him to be the guardian of this continent. Old Man Qin shook his head and smiled. The mysterious madam said, That's the saying, you can't judge a book by its cover. Yeah. Speaking of which, it must have been hard for him to silently protect the Great Qin all these years. Old Man Qin sighed. It wasn't just hard. Qin Feiyang sighed. He turned around and looked at Zhao Tailai and the other two, as well as the Blood Kirin. I don't care if you guys smile in front of me, but you must respect Uncle Yuan. You must respect him from the bottom of your heart, not because of his power. Understood. The 3 people and 2 beasts nodded. The mysterious madam looked at the 3 people and 2 beasts and asked, Feiyang, why are you suddenly so serious? Great-grandmother, there are many things you don't know. Uncle Yuan has sacrificed so much for the Great Qin. Qin Feiyang sighed. What do you mean? Everyone looked at him curiously. We talked a lot in Iron Bull Town. Qin Feiyang briefly explained Qin Yuan's situation. I see. He really is a great old man. After hearing this, everyone's hearts were filled with admiration. After a while, Uncle Yuan appeared again. He looked at everyone and smiled. The teleportation altar has been repaired. Yi Shu asked. What about the one to the Forgotten Continent? Qin Yuan nodded and smiled. It has been repaired. We can go back at any time. Thank you. Yi Shu said gratefully. He turned to the mysterious madam and said, Miss, let's go back. Okay. The mysterious madam nodded. She looked at Qin Feiyang and the inner demons and said, "Let's go back to the Forgotten Continent. When the situation stabilizes, we will go to the capital and visit your father." "Do you need me to ask old Zhao and the others to help you?" Qin Feiyang asked. "That's not necessary. Mu Tianyang and Mu Tianjun are dead. No one can threaten us now. As for the snow python and Dong Jingyang, I believe they won't do anything to us," the mysterious madam said. Qin Yuan said, "I have already warned the snow python and Dong Jingyang. They won't do anything stupid." Yishu looked at Qin Yuan and bowed. "Brother Qin Yuan, thank you so much. Now the Forgotten Continent has nothing to worry about." "It's nothing. You're welcome." Qin Yuan waved his hand and smiled. To Qin Yuan, this was a piece of cake. However, to the mysterious madam, Yishu, and the others, this was great news. The mysterious madam looked at Qin Yuan gratefully. Then she looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled. "Then we'll be leaving first. You should have a good rest after you go back." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. "You too. Don't think about anything for now. Have a good rest." The mysterious madam patted the inner demon's shoulder and said with a smile. Then, she led Yishu and the monkey-faced old man downwards. The secret chamber below had been repaired. The teleportation altar had also been repaired. After the mysterious madam and the other three left, Qin Feiyang and the others also bid farewell to Qin Yuan. They opened the fake space-time gate and walked in one after another. Soon, only Qin Yuan was left here. After watching the space-time gate disappear, Qin Yuan took out 4 drops of blood. After a long silence, he looked up at the sky and sighed. Should I believe Dong Jingyang? Imperial Palace. A day and a night passed. Everyone was still gathered in the throne room. The entire throne room was shrouded in a sadness that couldn't be dispersed. Another day and night has passed and there's still no news from them. It seems that they really died together with the demon ancestor. Emperor Hong sighed and broke the silence. The emperor also looked haggard. He waved his hand weakly and said, "The dead can't be revived. There's no use for us to be sad here. Let's disperse." The civil and military officials looked at each other and silently turned to leave. Hong Erluzheng painfully closed his eyes. 2 drops of tears quietly fell. Then he opened a teleportation gate. Father, great-grandfather, who said we're dead? But at this moment, a faint laughter sounded outside the palace. This voice. Everyone's gaze trembled. They hurriedly looked at the gate. A group of people filed in and entered everyone's line of sight. The leader was Qin Feiyang and the inner demons. Feiyang, old Qin, you. Am I dreaming? The emperor slowly got up. Looking at Qin Feiyang and the others, he rubbed his eyes hard. Father, a living person is standing in front of you. How can it be a dream? Qin Feiyang said with a smile. It's not a dream. You're all still alive. The emperor was ecstatic. He quickly walked in front of Qin Feiyang and looked at the familiar face in front of him with tears in his eyes. Emperor Hong, Qin Sheng, and the other 2, as well as the civil and military officials of the court, were also crying tears of joy. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and said, I'm sorry, father, I've made you worry. Then he looked at Emperor Hong Luzheng, Qin Sheng, and the civil and military officials, and said, This is my fault. I didn't pass on the good news to you immediately. Silly child, what are you talking about? It's good that you came back alive. Emperor Hong scolded with a smile. Yes. As long as you can come back alive, it's more important than anything. The emperor grabbed Qin Feiyang's hand, his whole body trembling. He was afraid that in the next moment, Qin Feiyang would disappear in front of him. Father, looking at the emperor's haggard face, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but feel sad. He quickly changed the topic and said with a smile, Father, you have more than one son now. At the same time, he pushed the inner demons in front of the emperor. The inner demons' expression froze, and they were at a loss. Yes. I have more than one son now. Only then did the emperor realize that he had ignored the existence of the inner demons. He quickly grabbed the inner demons' hand and said with a smile, Child, it's been hard on you. This matter was too sudden. The inner demons really didn't know how to deal with it. Did you see that? No matter how powerful a person is, there will be times when they don't know what to do. Zhao Tailai chuckled. Tang Hai, old Qin Chuili, and the blood Kirin looked at the inner demons mockingly. Qin Feiyang said helplessly, "This is your fault. We should be encouraging him." "Don't worry. The inner demons are very adaptable. He doesn't need our encouragement." The golden leopard laughed. "Can't you say this behind my back? Do you think I won't kill you right now?" The inner demons looked at them angrily and raised his eyebrows. The blood Kirin coughed and said, "Master inner demons, you have a father now. You should be a filial child." "You." The inner demons' eyes widened in anger. Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly. He looked at the inner demons and said, Okay. Don't you know their personalities? Do you have to be angry with them? I'll deal with you later." The inner demons looked at the blood Kirin and took a deep breath. He looked at the emperor and bowed. "Greetings, father." Good. The emperor nodded and grabbed the inner demons and Qin Feiyang's hands. He looked happy and proud. He smiled and said, "You are my pride." Chapter 1875. Hearing the emperor's words, Qin Feiyang and the inner demons looked at each other and scratched their heads in embarrassment. Emperor Hong stepped forward and said with a smile, "Feiyang, where are your mother, grandfather, and your grandfather?" "Yay, why don't I see them?" the emperor also asked. "Are they all in the castle? Call them out." Lu Zheng also walked up and said with a smile. Hearing the three of them, Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other and lowered their heads in silence. "What's wrong?" The emperor and Emperor Hong looked at everyone suspiciously. Lu Zheng glanced at Qin Feiyang and the others, and an uneasy premonition immediately rose in his heart. Plop. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang and the inner demons knelt on the ground. "What are you doing?" The emperor and Emperor Hong hurriedly reached out, wanting to help the two up. "Father, great-grandfather, we were incompetent and couldn't protect mother and the others." Qin Feiyang lowered his head and said, "In this battle, only a few of us came back alive." The inner demons said, "What?" Emperor Hong's eyes trembled. The emperor's body also shook violently, and he almost fainted. The three of them and the civil and military officials were also in an uproar. "Only a few of you came back alive? What about Hong?" Lu Zheng also looked at Qin Feiyang and the others with a dull face and asked. "Lu Hong has also died in battle." Qin Feiyang sighed. "You bastard." Lu Zheng suddenly went crazy, stepped forward and grabbed Qin Feiyang's clothes, roaring, "Didn't you say that you would protect her well?" "I'm sorry," Qin Feiyang whispered. "What's the use of being sorry?" Lu Zheng roared, raised his fist, and punched Qin Feiyang's face. Qin Feiyang did not resist. But just as Lu Zheng's fist was about to land on Qin Feiyang's face, he suddenly stopped. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at Lu Zheng suspiciously. He saw that Lu Zheng's eyes were closed and his expression was full of pain. After a long time, Lu Zheng let go of Qin Feiyang and lowered his arms. He opened his eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang. "I didn't even participate in the battle. What right do I have to scold you?" "Cousin," Qin Feiyang murmured. "All right, it was my fault just now. I was impulsive and almost beat you up. It's also because I'm useless. I can't even protect the woman I love. I'm living in such a sorry state." Lu Zheng shook his head. Qin Feiyang looked at Lu Zheng worriedly and comforted him. "Cousin, it's not your fault. Don't worry about me. I'm fine." Lu Zheng squeezed out a smile. "Feiyang, since you're still alive, why can't I contact you? And Lu Zheng and I have been to the Demon Dragon Island, but we didn't see you," Emperor Hong said. After the demon ancestor and Snow were defeated, they fled to the Forgotten Continent. "We also killed our way to the Forgotten Continent, and killed Mu Tianyang and Mu Tianjun on the way," Qin Feiyang said. "What?" "Even Mu Tianyang and Mu Tianjun have been killed." Emperor Hong, the emperor, and the civil and military officials all looked at each other. "That's right. The battle is over," Qin Feiyang said. Emperor Hong asked, "What about the mermaid clan?" Qin Feiyang said with a smile. The mermaid clan has also been killed by us. Great. Now our great Qin is finally at peace. Emperor Hong laughed. Yes. The emperor was also very excited. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the inner demons and said, You are not only the pride of your father, but the pride of the entire great Qin. And you? The emperor looked at old man Qin, Zhao Tailai, and the blood Kirin bowed and said, Thank you, please accept my bow. Your Majesty, you can't do that. Old man Qin hurriedly said. No. This bow is what you deserve. Without you, the fate of our great Qin is unimaginable. After the emperor finished speaking, he bowed deeply to everyone. The three of them looked at each other, then at Zhao Tailai and the others and said, Please accept our bow. And us. The civil and military officials also bowed. Lu Zheng looked at everyone, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, Well done, I'll go back now and tell the good news to second grandpa and the others. Qin Feiyang asked, Are you really okay? Don't worry. Your cousin is not that weak. Plus, I know what you're thinking. Hong or won't die. Lu Zheng smiled, then opened the portal and left. The emperor smiled and said, Lu Zheng, this kid, really likes Lu Hong. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. The emperor's face became serious. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, But Feiyang, I still won't allow you to open the door of rebirth. And I believe that your mother won't allow you to do so either. Qin Feiyang was silent for a while, then smiled and said, Father, it's rare that we won a battle. Let's not talk about this first. The emperor frowned, then turned around and stepped onto the dragon throne. He looked at the civil and military officials and shouted, Write the decree. Not long after, a eunuch came out from behind with a brush, ink, paper, and an inkstone. He stood respectfully behind the emperor. Announce it to the world. First, restore Qin Feiyang's status as a prince, and crown Qin Feiyang as the crown prince of the Great Qin. Second, restore Lu Qiuyu's position as the empress. Third, confer Elder Qin the title of the Great Qin State Preceptor. Fourth, Zhao Tailai, Cui Li, and Tang Hai are conferred as the great generals of the nation. Fifth, the Blood Qilin and the Golden Divine Leopard are conferred as the divine beasts of the Great Qin. Sixth, reveal the evil deeds of the demon ancestor. Seventh, pay respects to the souls of the dead in battle. The entire throne room was filled with the emperor's loud voice. The eunuch beside him wrote at a fast speed. The civil and military officials returned to the imperial court and listened quietly. Qin Feiyang's face was already covered in tears. It was not for restoring his status as a prince, nor was it for the title of crown prince. He was only happy for his mother. Over the years, his mother had suffered too much. He had always hated himself for being useless and unable to protect his mother. So, he worked hard to let his mother regain the respect she deserved. Now he finally did it. His biggest goal in returning to the imperial capital this time was to clear his mother's name. Since he had waited for this moment, he could leave without regrets. Boom. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the space-time gate awakened. The emperor and Emperor Hong were stunned and hurriedly called out, Feiyang, where are you going? I'm going to do what I should do. The position of crown prince should be left to my younger brother. Qin Feiyang smiled at the two of them, and turned to enter the space-time gate without hesitation. Great-grandfather, father, you know what I think. Don't force yourself. The inner demons looked at the two of them with a smile, and followed them into the space-time gate. Tang Hai and the other two looked at each other. Zhao Tailai cupped his hands and said, Your Majesty, we don't need any great generals of the nation, because we will always follow in the footsteps of the young master. After saying that, the three of them also entered the space-time gate. And us. What divine beast of the nation, we don't care at all. In the future, as long as you love the people as your children, don't let our efforts go to waste. Seeing this, the Blood Qilin and the Golden Divine Leopard also said something to the emperor and quickly chased after Qin Feiyang and the others. Boom. Soon. The space-time gate dissipated. In the imperial court, Qin Sheng and the other two, as well as the civil and military officials, all looked at each other. They left just like that? The emperor was also stunned. He looked at Emperor Hong and said, Great-grandfather this? Emperor Hong's veins bulged as he said angrily. What a group of annoying fellows. This old man will chase them back. Old Qin stopped Emperor Hong and shook his head. Emperor Hong, don't go. Emperor Hong said angrily. Old Qin, why even you? Fei Yang and the others are not here. Why force it? Moreover, do you think that if you chase after them, they will change their minds? Old Qin shook his head. But, Emperor Hong frowned. Enough, don't force it. Old man Qin waved his hand and raised his head to look at the emperor. He smiled and said, Your Majesty, I can understand your feelings, but I understand Qin Feiyang's feelings even more. Don't force these things onto him. The emperor lowered his head and fell silent. Fine. Let them be. Emperor Hong sighed deeply and said. The emperor looked at Emperor Hong and said, Then this imperial edict. The imperial edict can be changed. Actually, Feiyang just wants to get everyone's recognition and clear his mother's name. Old Qin said. All right. The emperor nodded helplessly and looked at Old Qin. Then you definitely can't run away from the position of state preceptor. Old Qin smiled and said, Okay, this old man will reluctantly be the state preceptor of Great Qin. Qin Feiyang and the others had already run away. If even he ran away, wouldn't the emperor be angered to death? Reluctantly, the emperor was speechless. Spirit State. Butterfly Valley. Qin Feiyang looked at the inner demons and the others, and said speechlessly, Why did you guys run here too? What? As soon as the battle is over, you want to abandon us? Zhao Tailai was dissatisfied. You know I didn't mean that. Whether it's the national general or the guardian divine beast, this is the honor you deserve. Qin Feiyang said. We are the dignified god of war, why would we care about this? The golden divine leopard disdained. Qin Feiyang. Look, I have made a great contribution this time. This true god body and the matter of guarding the great Qin, can you? The blood Kirin looked at Qin Feiyang nervously. Back then, Qin Feiyang had said that he wanted it to oversee the great Qin Empire and protect the little prince. Qin Feiyang looked at the blood Kirin and then at Zhao Tailai and the others. He smiled and said, Are you willing to accept it as your companion? The blood Kirin immediately looked at Zhao Tailai and the others. This? Zhao Tailai and the others looked at each other and sized up the blood Kirin. They were silent. Old Zhao, Old Tang, Cui Li Jr. Leopard, whether you are a human or a beast, you have to have a conscience. Ask yourselves, how have I treated you? The blood Kirin said anxiously. Not much. Zhao Tailai pouted. Indeed. Tang Hai, Cui Li, and the golden divine leopard nodded. You, the blood Kirin stared at them angrily. Haha. Zhao Tailai suddenly laughed and said, I was just teasing you. Did you really take it seriously? Come on, welcome to the team. Zhao Tailai opened his arms and hugged the blood Kirin. The blood Kirin was shocked. It excitedly jumped on Zhao Tailai and stuck out its red tongue, covering Zhao Tailai's face with saliva. Thank you. Thank you so much. The blood Kirin looked at the three people and the beast gratefully and smiled. Qin Feiyang and the inner demons looked at each other and smiled. They looked around but they didn't see Uncle Yuan. It seemed that he had left. Shua. But suddenly, an old figure appeared. It was Yishu. Genius memorized this address in 1 second. Mobile reading website, M. Chapter 1876. Yishu. Qin Feiyang and the inner demons were taken aback. The blood Kirin, the golden leopard, and Zhao Tailai all looked at Yishu. Old man Yi, you're missing us already? The blood Kirin was in a good mood. I'm not in the mood to play around with you. Yishu glanced at it, then walked over to Qin Feiyang and the inner demons. He said in a low voice, Guys, something strange has happened on the Forgotten Continent. What is it? Qin Feiyang and the inner demons looked at each other suspiciously. When we returned to the glacier forest, we planned to return to the central divine kingdom. But suddenly, we sensed that the glacier forest was covered by an invisible power. And we also discovered that this power is everywhere. It can even enter our bodies and steal our blood and life force. Yishu said. Everywhere. Steel blood and life force. Qin Feiyang and the others were shocked. How could this be the same as when Zhuge Mingyang was reborn? Wait. The blood Kirin suddenly said. What is it? Everyone turned to look at it. The blood Kirin paused for a moment, then looked at the inner demons and asked, did the master, Zhuge Shunfeng, and the imperial teacher fall out of the demon tower? Yes. The inner demons nodded. Oh no. The blood Kirin's eyes dimmed. Zhao Tailai said, don't be so surprised. Tell us what you know. The blood Kirin said, the inheritance of the immortal demon art is inside the demon tower. Qin Feiyang's pupils shrank as he said, you're saying that Chief Pagoda Master and the others received the inheritance of the undying demon technique? That must be it. Because of the continuous battles, I forgot about it. The Master and the others hate you to the core. I don't think the Demon Alpha would let go of this opportunity, the blood Kirin said. Yishu nodded. So the Imperial Teacher and the others are now reviving? The blood Kirin nodded. Chuili was puzzled. Since the immortal demon technique is so powerful, why didn't you and Sima Yuan cultivate it? Because cultivating the undying demon art has a fatal side effect. If you can't cultivate it, you can only rely on being killed to break through. Furthermore, cultivating the undying demon art requires an extremely strong hatred. As for me, Sima Yuan and the others, although we were enemies at that time, it is not to the extent that we hated you. As for Lin Yi, although she hated you all greatly after losing her memories, the demon ancestor was unwilling to let her cultivate the undying demon technique, because she had awakened the eyes of oblivion. The blood Kirin explained. The inner demons looked at Qin Feiyang and said, so it's just as we thought. You've already guessed? The blood Kirin was shocked. Qin Feiyang said, we've thought of that before, but we haven't been able to confirm it. The blood Kirin glanced at everyone and said in a deep voice, everyone, this matter must not be taken lightly. The Imperial Teacher had already broken through to the Warlord realm at the miracle site. If he succeeds in reviving this time, he will be a lesser-tier warlord. Yishu looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Feiyang, the blood Kirin is right. We must think of a way to stop them from reviving. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed coldly and he said, there's no time to lose. Let's go to the glacier forest immediately. Everyone nodded. Whoosh. Immediately, the group plunged into the ground below. Glacier forest. At this moment, the mysterious madam, the monkey-faced old man, and the aquiline-nosed old man stood in the void, looking down with gloomy expressions. Whoosh. After a while, Yishu led Qin Feiyang and the others to the three. The mysterious madam apologized. Feiyang, I wanted you to have a good rest, but now I have to trouble you again. I'm really sorry. Why are you saying this? Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Old man Yi already knows about the situation. We guessed that Zhuge Shunfeng, the chief tower master, has cultivated the immortal demon technique. Bastard. The mysterious madam cursed. Qin Feiyang asked, what's the situation now? This force has already entered the second area. Fortunately, the young lady killed all the creatures in the first and second areas back then. Not many creatures are left now. Otherwise, they might have been revived. The monkey-faced old man and the other two said. Qin Feiyang said, it's still under control. The mysterious madam asked, Feiyang, do you have a way to get rid of them? Not before. But now, after seeing Zhuge Mingyang revive again and again, I've figured out the trick. Qin Feiyang said. Tell me. The mysterious madam urged. The immortal demon technique's revival process is very long and requires a lot of qi. I think they have almost condensed some flesh now. As long as we find this flesh and crush it again, we should be able to get rid of them. Qin Feiyang said. The method that Qin Feiyang spoke of is feasible. However, the people that will be doing it later cannot be you all. The blood Kirin looked at Qin Feiyang and the inner demons and said. What? Don't tell me that now that we've shattered their flesh, they'll be reborn. The inner demons said. Yes. If you do it, no matter how many times you kill them, they will revive again. That's why the immortal demon technique is so overbearing. The blood Kirin said. Phew. Qin Feiyang exhaled and released his divine will, covering the ground below. With his current cultivation base, not to mention flesh and blood, even if there was only a weak aura, he could easily find the source. He searched for the invisible force and found the source in less than 10 breaths. Shua. Qin Feiyang stepped forward and landed in front of a wide crack. The source was inside this crack. Qin Feiyang said, "Blood Kirin, go down and look for it." Okay. The blood Kirin's body quickly shrank until it was about half a meter long. It flew into the crack like lightning. After a while, the blood Kirin flew out of the crack. There were 3 pieces of flesh the size of a grain of rice next to it. The invisible force came from these 3 pieces of flesh. Moreover, from that weak aura he could still clearly distinguish who was who. Yishu sighed. Fortunately, we came back early. Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened to the Forgotten Continent if they had successfully revived. Qin Feiyang said, "Blood Kirin, crush it." Okay. The blood Kirin grinned. The inner demons suddenly thought of something and stopped the blood Kirin. Wait. What? Everyone looked at him suspiciously. The inner demons looked at Qin Feiyang and laughed. Why don't we keep them alive? Keep them alive? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. Don't you want to cultivate the little prince? In my opinion, these 3 people are the best stepping stones. The inner demons said. Good idea. Zhao Tailai's eyes lit up. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "The little prince will inherit the throne sooner or later. If he doesn't have some courage and responsibility, the great Qin won't be able to go far in the future." I agree. After all the enemies have been eliminated by us. The future of the great Qin will definitely enter an unprecedented prosperity and peace. In such an environment, no matter how Emperor Hong and the others cultivate the little prince, it will probably be difficult to train him to have a temperament like yours. Cui Li said. Although that's true, aren't we going in the opposite direction by doing this? After all, you heard Shuesong's last words with your own ears. Let me create a world of true peace. Qin Feiyang said. True peace is easier said than done. There's a very good saying, nothing in the world is eternal. Even if we eliminate all the enemies now and let the great Qin enter an unprecedented prosperity, there will be a day in the future when there will be changes. What you should do is let the descendants of the great Qin become stronger and stronger, and let every emperor of the future have a heart that loves the people. Only in this way can the great Qin go further. Tang Hai sighed. As the Lord of the Nether Hall, he had a deep understanding of these principles. Qin Feiyang looked at everyone and nodded. Very well then. Leave Zhuge Shunfeng and the Chief Tower Master behind, but kill the Imperial Tutor. After all, the Imperial Tutor has been a disaster for an era. If he continues to live, even the heavens will not tolerate it. The Blood Qilin's claw had turned the Imperial Tutor's flesh into ashes. This also meant that the Imperial Tutor had become history. The mysterious madam said, Your idea is very good, but there's a big problem now. Where do you want to seal Zhuge Shunfeng and the Chief Tower Master? Yes, they are now in a state of resurrection. The power that absorbs blood and miracles is everywhere. I'm afraid that even if we seal them, we won't be able to seal this power. Yi Shu said. That's easy. Find Uncle Yuan or the Snow Python. With their strength, it will be easy to seal Zhuge Shunfeng and the Chief Tower Master. Qin Feiyang smiled. No. Don't find the Snow Python. If she secretly does something, then the 2 continents will be in chaos again. Let's find Uncle Yuan. We trust him. The inner demons said. Qin Feiyang nodded. Am I so weak in your eyes? Before the inner demons finished speaking, a cold snort suddenly sounded. Swoosh. Immediately after, the snow python appeared in the void next to them. Zhao Tailai and the others immediately became vigilant. The snow python smiled disdainfully and looked directly at the inner demons. Do you remember what I said? When the slaughter domain is over, I will let you know the consequences of angering me. I'm standing right here. Do you dare to kill me? The inner demons laughed proudly. Are you still provoking me? The snow python's eyes were filled with killing intent. You have to think carefully. Yinglong was killed. You have been punished by the golden small beast by turning your body into a snow python. If you continue to kill the innocent, it may directly kill you. Qin Feiyang was not afraid and looked at the snow python mockingly. The snow python's eyes suddenly showed a trace of anger. Qin Yuan, you old bastard, how dare you tell them all this? Before it finished speaking, Qin Yuan appeared out of thin air and said with a smile, I'm just telling the truth. Why are you so angry? Bastard, it's all your fault. The snow python roared. It's been so many years. Why are you still holding a grudge? Qin Yuan shook his head and sighed. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Give their flesh and blood to me. I will seal them in the sea of reincarnation and the endless sea. Thank you, Uncle Yuan, Qin Feiyang said with a smile. The endless sea? But the mysterious lady Yi Shu and the other two were stunned. Genius remembered this site's address in a second. Top mobile version website. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.